Your way has gotten us here. We're taking no risks with the Supreme Court by thinking the Supreme Court is this sacrosanct institution that if we look at it the wrong way, it's going to cause, I don't know, this massive political catastrophe for us. We're already on the cusp of political catastrophe because so many people, you included, think that it's like you're playing with dynamite.
You are.
Maybe we need to start taking risks, bro.
But you are playing with dynamite if you do this.
You're frustrating me because you give me the impression of somebody who never wants to fight and who only wants to fight when we're 1 inch away from success, which isn't going to happen.
We're fighting right now, and I support it wholeheartedly, bro.
No, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
I never want to fight.
Did I just say
the fight? I love the fight that we're doing right now.
I think if Schumer kicked the can down the road again, if he had done what he did in April, in 2 months, you would have been saying, yeah, that was the right move to make. To the extent that you support the fight. Wait a minute.
That is not true. We talked about it. We talked about it on the podcast, bro. I told you they should pick this fight right now. Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, buddy. I was trying to find you this poll. You mentioned something about Democrats being seen as more extreme. I have it bookmarked somewhere. It's a recent poll. Actually, it's starting to turn around. More Americans believe that the Republican Party finally is more extreme than the Democratic Party. I'm trying to find this poll for you.
Do you still have a cough?
Yeah, bro. Yeah, it's
like a 3-week cough, man. That's crazy.
It's brutal.
Did you go to a doctor?
I have. They gave me a steroid 2 days ago, and we're going to see where it goes. But
I would Minecraft myself if I had a cough for 3 weeks. That's crazy.
It's atrocious. As a guy who doesn't vape or smoke or do anything else and who talks, for a living, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But real quick though,
first of all, that wouldn't surprise me. By the way, that makes sense. Like usually when there's a party in power, the public approval moves away from the party in power, and so it just kind of makes sense that. Yeah,
I'm trying to find a poll for you. I have a bookmark somewhere.
I take you at your word. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I know, but I know you like to have that sort of stuff in your back pocket. But no, listen. As far as I'm concerned, like I haven't heard Peace go in on this yet, but this is a big deal. This is a big fucking deal because all the, professional legal commentators that I follow, like Mark Elias, somebody mentioned Mark Elias on Twitter when I was freaking out about this. And like, hey, don't worry, we've got Mark Elias in our back pocket. And it's like, Mark Elias is the one freaking out about this. He did a video with Brian Tyler Cohen. He's like, it's probably not going to go our way. Yeah. And the Supreme Court's probably going to gut the VRA. Now, not a guarantee that that's going to happen, but it seems more likely than not. So it's not just me being a Chicken Little here. It's actually the people who do not just political commentary, but professional legal commentary and who wage these legal battles. Who are saying,
no. I've been aware of I know how bad this is. Yeah.
But my point is, and this is where I was just curious because I couldn't quite remember where you were on this, but we are 100% agreement that it's no longer optional. This court has to change, right? Like you recognize that not only can they kill a Democratic agenda, that's just a matter of fact, but they are now moving to potentially kill us from ever getting back into power. Like you agree that they are now the unavoidable obstacle in the long run, right?
Yeah, of course. Of course. I
just want to make sure we're on the same page there. So now that we agree on that, it's just simply a matter of what do we do about it with respect to campaign.
Yeah, it's a matter of strategy.
Yeah.
Did you? I don't know if you heard what I was saying, but
I heard, and that's why I was jumping in while I was looking for this poll real quick. I'm not saying Democrats probably should start talking about it at some point, but my point is they should have been talking about it from the beginning. This kind of goes back to my longstanding frustration.
Like what? When you say beginning, what do you mean? Like when?
When they had power. This is something so when President Biden took office, he appointed a commission at the behest of a lot of people about Supreme Court reform. And it was one of the first commissions put out. They did their work, and he basically just said, we're going to disregard it. And then the Supreme Court came out with its immunity decision. And it finally got Biden to the point where even Biden, Mr. Institutionalist Biden, Mr. Just leave everything as it is Biden, was like, fuck, this is not what I expected. We need to have a constitutional amendment to get rid of presidential immunity, and we need to institute Supreme Court reform. We need to have term limits, things like that. So Biden was just wrong about Supreme Court reform. the progressives were right. He was dead wrong. And even he realized at the end, oh, fuck, this has gone much worse than I expected.
Well,
Democrats, no, he was wrong about this.
Well,
and my point is,
but wait, I want to push back, because when Biden was talking about, I think you're referring to the fact that he came out against court packing when he ran in 2020. I think that came up on a debate stage. I think
he opposed, if I remember correctly, any sort of substantive court reform.
What I want to push back on is the idea that it is entirely possible that internally he felt like court packing was necessary, but he understood that running on it would be extremely risky. Because if he,
then why did he come out with an amendment? Why did he come out?
Well, he was in power at that point. That's the difference, right? Like,
but he was in power for 4 years,
right? But I'm saying that like if you run, like if you're Joe Biden and you run on court packing in 2020 and then you lose, then what do you think Donald Trump and the Republicans are going to do in that spot?
I'm talking about him after he got back. I'm talking about when he got elected. When he got elected, he proposed a presidential commission to look into Supreme Court reform, and they came up with a bunch of options. The PDF is out there. It's really good, comprehensive, about term limits, about supermajority requirements if they're going to strike down a law as unconstitutional, about elected Supreme Court justices. They came up with a whole host of options that not only do many of our states, which are, of course are microcosms of the federal government because they have 3 branches of their own. It's like, hey, if states elect their Supreme Court justices, why can't we? Hey, if states, have term limits on their Supreme Court justices, why can't we? Hey, if there are mandatory retirement ages for their Supreme Court justices, why can't we? Et cetera and so forth. He was in power at the time, and for 3 years, he just kind of swept it under the rug. Then when he was in power, and it was after the Trump immunity decision, that was the game changer. And so he was like, we need a new constitutional amendment to get rid of, it was like the No Kings Amendment or something like that. We're going to get rid of presidential immunity. And we need to pass a law to expand, not to expand the court, but to put term limits, I think. And there was like another provision as well.
I
think a binding code of conduct.
I remember.
The point is, Biden did that when he was in power. And I think it was before the election, if I remember correctly, because I think Kamala Harris ran on it as well. Or suggested as well. She didn't make it like a centerpiece point of her campaign.
Right.
But this is something that the Democrats should have been doing when they were in power. They shouldn't have waited until the last moments of the election to talk about it. I mean, I had Sheldon Whitehouse on after the election, and he said the same thing. He's like, we fucked up. The approval for the Supreme Court was incredibly low after the Dobbs decision. And then the scandal surrounding Clarence Thomas, his lack of disclosure, and then the Trump immunity decision. That was a triple threat. That was back to back to back. Their approval was at historic lows, and we were in power. We should have tried to invest political capital in saying, hey, listen, this court doesn't have your back. They're partisanly skewed towards the right. We try to do X, they strike it down. We try to do Y, they strike it down. All these things.
So do you mean they should have actually tried to take a swing at it when Biden was president, or tried to start laying the foundation?
Both.
Well, let me push back on the first point. That was just not going to happen, right? Like he was never going to be able to have the votes to pack the court when he was president.
I think that there's still an argument to be made that he should have tried anyway.
What?
I mean, it's not. Because you agree, did Biden take a swing at Build Back Better?
Well, that's a bit different because did
he take a swing at it?
No, he did. But in that case, he knew that he was going to be able to negotiate something, and so he did get something from that negotiation. Like, what could he have possibly gotten from that Congress that? I'm just trying to. What plausible route do you think he had to packing the court during his presidency?
I'm not saying that he could have succeeded. I'm saying that much like with Build Back Better, he didn't get Build Back Better accomplished. He got a lot of it folded into the Inflation Reduction Act, but it wasn't like 80%. It wasn't even, I don't even know if it was 50%. It was just a substantial portion of the Build Back Better bill was folded into the IRA. So this idea that they only take votes on shit that they know is going to pass is just simply not true. Biden did have failed votes. It wasn't like a Speaker Pelosi.
But that's like normal negotiation with Congress, though. I'm sure he knew he wasn't going to get his entire Build Back Better agenda, but you negotiate. And so that's what he did. And then he got a lot of those provisions codified into law. Like, what are you negotiating with packing the court? It's not just about packing the court. It's about binding code of conduct. It's about potential term limits. It's about all sorts of things. There are many reforms that we could have. All those things require getting rid of the filibuster. And that was
for it to pass.
That was never on the table.
Well, Build Back Better was never on the table either.
No, but I don't, these are not the same thing.
I know they're not the same thing, but my point is this idea that we can't take a swing at it because we won't get what we wanted is absurd. By that logic, they shouldn't have done.
But if you take a swing at it and you know you're going to lose, then you're really risking serious escalation when Republicans...
He knew he was going to lose on Build Back Better too.
No, but you're not listening. The Build Back Better, he took a swing on that because he knew he was going to be able to negotiate something and get let's say
How do you know?
Well, because that's how negotiations work.
He was confident. This is where my frustration is, and this is why I want to have this conversation with you. I blame your attitude, the prevalence of your attitude on where we are right now with the court. Because by your logic, Hutch, when do we ever make a move on the court? When? You were against Democrats ever investing political capital and trying to make it a salient. You always said it was a low salience issue. Low salience issue. Stop talking about it, Jessiah. Low salience issue. It'd be great if we could do it. But it's a low salience issue.
So hold on. Let me try to explain.
Well, wait. My point is, it is simply a fact. It's not a matter of opinion. If you disagree, you're objectively wrong. This court is an insurmountable obstacle to a Democratic agenda, and now it's poised to become an insurmountable obstacle to Democrats ever taking back the House. That is on balance the probability. The court has to be reformed. It must. It's no longer an option.
No, I'm with you on court reform. I've never not been with you on court reform. I understand you're not. Let me make my point.
You have been with court reform in principle. You just have no answers, or you're willing to take no risks in getting to it.
No, I do.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
So let me explain. So there's a difference between, let me put it this way, okay? Like when it comes to court reform, you would agree that this is in a separate kind of special category than like legislation, right? So when we talk about legislation, it's very normal that this is just how Congress has always functioned, that there's going to be some kind of negotiation with Congress. And then, a lot of the provisions are going to be radically changed. A lot of the provisions are going to be scrapped. And then a lot of the provisions are going to remain. That's just how every, major kind of landmark legislation gets done. When it comes to court reform, that's something that when you take a swing at it, that's something that you need to, that's something that you need, there needs to be, how do I phrase this? Hold on.
While you're doing that, your chat, so many people in your chat are so fucking stupid. Susie Baca, this is how radicals lose the centrists. Okay, and they're talking about court packing. The Republicans pack the court. You stupid fucks.
Okay, wait. Okay,
they pack the court.
Susie, don't listen
to him. They pack the court by stealing Obama's nominee. And then they packed the court again by changing their own fucking rule in 2020. They packed the court. And this idea that, oh my God, if we defy precedent, they already have a Republican supermajority. It's very likely that at the end of Trump's presidency, they will have a MAGA supermajority.
Okay, right.
We can't do anything because Republicans will then try to act in bad faith. They're going to act in bad faith anyway. Stupid fucks.
So this is a conversation.
You can't wield power aggressively because you can't defend yourself because, what if your abuser hit you back harder? You people are so fucking dumb, objectively wrong and stupid.
All right. So you're very angry. I get it. Okay, but sometimes I feel like we don't make our best decisions when we're angry. The point that I'm trying to make when it comes to court reform and the potentiality of actually expanding the Supreme Court, adding Supreme Court justices. Would you agree that that's one thing, that's one goal that Democrats need to? That the moment that they go for that,
I'm obviously not talking about all of Hutch's chat. Just want to put that out there. Just the stupid ones.
The moment that they go for that,
like Susie,
they need to pick their spot for doing something like that. Because if you swing too early, in the case of Biden, should have gone around the country and talked about the importance of expanding the Supreme Court. The risk of that is so substantial because look what happened. Biden is inaugurated 4 years later. Republicans have another trifecta. And what is to stop them in that moment from saying, well, we already know what they're going to do the next time they get power. So we're just going to pack the court with 20 Supreme Court justices. who will let us, basically gerrymander our districts.
They already have a 6-3 conservative supermajority. Why would they do that? And even if they did do that, how would it fundamentally change anything?
You're just dismissing the possibility that they would add like 6 more justices if they knew that Democrats were going to do that the next time they're in power?
Why would they do that when they already have a supermajority? It's not like it's a 50-50 court.
Why would they do that? What do you mean?
It's not even a 5-4
No, what you're saying makes no sense. Why would they do that? Why do you think they would do that?
Hutch, what have they done?
Wait, I want you to answer that question.
Let's game this out.
I want you to answer that question. No. Steel man my argument. Why would they add 6 more justices?
I don't think there's a good steel man for your argument because
wait, stop.
No,
hold
wait,
on.
What? Hutch,
he has not.
How would it fundamentally? Is there a constitutional?
The Supreme Court they have not let Trump do everything he wants to do. You understand that, right? Like they have actually blocked him several times. They would add more justices.
I don't know about several times. Certainly not this term. I think the Kilmar-Abrego Garcia won, and I think they've temporarily said that Lisa Cook can remain on the Federal Reserve. But other than that, anytime this has gotten to the Supreme Court via the shadow docket, no, he's on a fucking winning streak.
But if you add 10 more, Trump appointees to the Supreme Court.
It would go. You're right. It would go from 95% victory rate to like 100% victory rate. But what's your point about what does that have to do about future packing of the court? What's your point?
Because they could pack the court so they could stack it with what's to stop them from adding 20 conservative justices that were hand selected by the Heritage Foundation?
Could that somehow prevent us from adding 40 the next time we're in power?
But here's what I'm saying. I'm saying if you think the gerrymandering is bad right now, when you have like a 20-seat majority, you can effectively like block Democrats from ever getting power ever again.
Hutch, let me ask you something. Let's use a different example. Let's use a different example. Have Democrats talked about abolishing the filibuster?
Some Democrats have, but it hasn't been like a plank of the party.
But has that been something that's been talked about, threatened, about carve-outs for the filibuster, about weakening the filibuster, either abolishing it wholesale or making more exceptions for the filibuster?
Not at the leadership level.
No, I'm pretty sure Biden also wanted nuclear carve-outs for the filibuster for Kirsten and Sinema, and they just refused to go along with it.
These were pretty limp threats. I mean, there was never really any threat of that happening.
Has the leadership of the Democratic Party called for making exceptions to the filibuster to pass through their agenda? Even Biden did it. Do you agree with that?
I take your word on that one. If Biden said for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, I think he did it for that, but nothing else.
Yes.
But I mean, but there was never any threat of that.
So here's my point. Why have Republicans not totally abolished the filibuster yet?
Because both parties, like both parties in the Senate, the filibuster still has broad support.
I have a different interpretation. You tell me if you think this is plausible. I think it's because for the most part, this was also the case in Trump term 1. I think it's because for the most part, they're able to get their agenda through either with the filibuster or by making little piecemeal carve-outs along the way. They fucked with the filibuster in this term to get, I think it was the Big Beautiful Bill passed, if I remember correctly, that there was a provision of the Big Beautiful Bill that was getting caught up in the filibuster, and so they changed the rules. But they haven't abolished it wholesale. My thought process is I'm not convinced that if Democrats start campaigning on expanding the court, that Republicans will expand the court, because I think, just as they do with the filibuster, their thought process is, well, it's already working to our advantage anyway. The only thing we have to do is just win the election and keep them out of power. If they decide to pack the court, again, it'd go from a 6-3 conservative supermajority to a 23-seat supermajority, then they might get more of their agenda accomplished, but it wouldn't prevent Democrats from packing the court if and when they got back into power.
It would just permanently lock Democrats out of power, is my point.
How so?
Because they would like, if you imagine a court that was like, 20 Donald Trump Supreme Court justices, they would allow the most extreme kind of like gerrymandering that you could possibly imagine. Like they would implement, they would get rid of the filibuster as well. By the way, they would also pass like whatever legislation they can get with a simple majority. And so, they can do that. They can do that at any time. No, but they would 100%. But like if Democrats right now started, if it was like a party-wide strategy, Schumer and Pelosi and Jeffries and all the major, like, we are going to get rid of the filibuster and we're going to, they would get rid of it immediately right now. And then it's like, okay, well, are we repealing and replacing Obamacare at this point? Like, are we, you know, doing a federal abortion ban? Like, the dam would open immediately. And right now the Democrats, I think, are at a, especially if this VRA decision comes from the Supreme Court and it makes it like that much more difficult for Democrats to take power. It's like, you know, you have to, like, I think there's something to be said about just being smart about when you take your shot at something. And like right now, Democrats just have no leverage to like make these kinds of threats. And the threat of Republicans getting ahead of it and then putting in even more institutional hurdles for the Democratic Party that will make their job of taking power eventually that much more difficult. I just feel like we're in no position to do that right now.
Why did Biden and Kamala even mention it? I don't think they made it nearly as much of a priority, but why did they endorse Supreme Court reform while Biden was in office in his final year before the election? Why did both of them do that?
Well, they endorsed Supreme Court reforms, but they didn't endorse packing the court.
So that's the red line. You're saying when it comes to packing the court, that's the one the others, term limits, binding codes of conduct, things of that nature. That's something we can afford to take a shot at while we're in power or during the campaign. It's literally expanding the court.
Yeah, because once you start expanding the court, that's Pandora's box just burst wide open.
So you don't support expanding the court?
No, I do in principle, but I think the difference between you and me is I think you need to be very strategic about like when you make that push, because when you make the push, better be the time that you actually get it done. You can't make that push and then fail, because the Republicans will do it 1,000% the second they get back in power. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that needs to be a shot that you don't miss. You cannot miss that shot.
Even if you succeed, if you succeed, why wouldn't they do it when they get back in power?
Well, they probably will. That's the thing. It's going to be a back and forth thing at that point, you know. Like, and then I don't even know.
I just want to be. I want to double check on this. So your hesitation is not that they will do it too. If you think they'll do it first,
it would have to be. You would have to pass some kind of. I don't know if this would require a constitutional amendment, but you would have to package in reforms with expanding the court. And so you would have to package in like the people vote on Supreme Court justices instead of them being appointed and then confirmed by the Senate. You would have to.
Some of these reforms might require. Well, I guess it really depends on how the Supreme Court interprets it, right? The Supreme Court might say, "Yeah, it's not unconstitutional. You can pass this through federal statute." Others might say, "No, you need a constitutional amendment to modify Section 3 of the Constitution." Yeah. I don't know, but my point is, I've come to terms with, I've accepted that any sort of reform we make to the court, the Republicans will either try to undo or to escalate on their side. I've accepted that if we expand the Supreme Court, if and when they get back into power, they are almost certainly going to do the same. But I currently view the present as untenable to begin with, because it's not like we have a balanced court. It's not like we're taking things that's balanced more or less and, you know, making a risky gamble to unbalance it only for it to whipsaw back even more extreme. It's already tilted in their favor pretty massively. And again,
I just feel like this reminds me of so many conversations I have with like Cinemarxism, by the way, like is a conversation I had like 2 months ago about, he was making the argument that AOC and Bernie should just do a clean break from the party because things are already maximally bad. And so, you know, if they did a clean break and then that led to more Republican wins, well, what difference does it make? Because things are already as bad as they're going to get right now, which I just found that to be so unbelievably myopic, like a complete lack of imagination. Like, you really can't imagine things getting worse. I think you're doing kind of the same thing right now. Like, you really can't imagine things getting worse with like 6 more Supreme Court justices that are conservatives. Like, you really can't imagine.
I just don't know. I suppose I can imagine, again, going from, I mean, again, I don't know what the success rate is at the moment. I haven't looked it up, but all I know is he's on a winning streak so far with the Supreme Court. Even when he was out of power with the immunity decision, but since he's been back in power, he's been on a winning streak.
What about after the election in 2020? Like, the Supreme Court definitely checked Donald Trump when it came to his challenges to the legitimacy of the election. What if you have?
Do you think that they're checking? No, yes, I agree. But that was the court then. That was the court then. I think that the court now.
No, that's the same court now. What are you talking about?
No. I'm talking about in terms of its attitude and posture. I don't think the Supreme Court in 2025 is the same court as it was in 2020.
You're saying I think the same court would, like, if Donald Trump were to challenge 2028, you think they would just go along with it?
Oh, I don't know about that specific apples to apples comparison, but my point is, like,
that's a pretty big deal, right? Like,
I do agree that that's a big deal, but my point is,
that's the risk I'm talking about. That's the risk I'm talking about. You're saying just take the swing and fuck it. They're just going to add Supreme Court justices, whatever. Well, what if they add so many justices that are so deranged that, you know, they literally steal the election in 2028?
I'm just trying to figure out what you think the alternative is, because I feel like
that's a huge risk, right?
Here's my point. Here's my point. Wait a minute.
We need to pause on that for a minute.
No. Here's my point. Wait. Stop. No. Here's my point. You asked me a question. Here's your way has gotten us here, where we're on the cusp of losing, very likely. It's not
way. I don't even know what that means.
We're taking no risks with the Supreme Court by thinking the Supreme Court is this fucking sacrosanct institution that if we look at it the wrong way, it's going to cause, I don't know, this massive political catastrophe for us. We're already on the cusp of political catastrophe because so many people, you included, think that it's like you're playing with fucking dynamite.
You are.
Maybe we need to start taking risks, bro.
But you are playing with dynamite if you do this. You say that my way led us here, but I think that's a really flawed way of looking at it, because I think your way very plausibly could have led to 10 more conservatives on the Supreme Court.
You know what? It's possible.
Which would be worse.
But I do know in this timeline, where Democrats are like, if it's fuck, you know, the Supreme Court, let's just bitch about it. That's all we do. Let's just bitch about it and hope for the best.
Smart is what I'm saying. You have to be smart, is what I'm saying. You can set this as a goal.
What is the Hutch smart approach? Because again, I'm gonna push back on this. We've talked about this on Live and Learn exhaustively, and you push back every time. Your excuse is it's a low salience issue, and I'm like, okay, Hutch, well, how about we try to make it a high salience issue? And you're like, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to invest the political capital.
No, but you just
so you do believe Democrats should be talking about this.
No.
And trying to make it a high salience issue.
What I said was they should be trying to make this a high salience issue, but you have to be very fucking shrewd about it.
I'm all for shrewdness. The baton is yours. You walk me through the shrewdness.
I'm not. I don't have a Machiavellian mind. Like, I don't know if I can give you the sort of strategy that you're looking for.
Broad strokes. Just give me broad strokes, because I don't know how you do it without talking about it.
You would have to have a mandate from the public. That's what it comes down to. You would have to have a situation where, you know, like 60, 70, 75% of the public would agree to something like that. Like, you would have to have that much political cover. If you do it right now, when the Democrats...
Can I ask you something that maybe this is the heart of the confusion? What do you mean by high salience versus low salience?
As in something
maybe I'm confused.
As in, if I say something is high salience to voters, it's something that motivates them to vote. It's like one of the things that they, you know, that motivates them to actually engage in electoral politics.
So you're not just talking about in terms of its priority. You're talking about high salience in terms of where it ranks on the priority, and also separately how much support the issue has regardless of where it is on the priority.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay. Do you think that Democrats are capable of moving the needle on either of those things, or just one, or neither? Both, one, neither?
Either of what things?
Can Democrats see, what I took it to mean all this time, that when you meant high salience, it wasn't just a matter of how much of a priority it was as in terms of a motivator to vote, but in terms of its lack of you felt that it was insufficiently supported. Not just that it wasn't a high priority, but that there wasn't enough in terms of a majority to support court reform.
Yeah,
that was what I took your objections to be, that it was two-pronged. It wasn't just a matter of the priority. It was you felt it was insufficiently supported. My point was always that Democrats could invest political capital, or try to invest political capital in increasing both of these things. Try to help encourage popular support for these reforms.
Yeah,
and you try to make it a higher priority.
I just don't know if it. I don't know if it can come from leadership. So, like, if you have Democratic officials that are out there making the case and like laying the foundation, you know, like the Pete Buttigieg, like incredible surrogate he is, you know, like if you had people out there like making that case, then that's fine. But if it's coming from like Obama, and if it's coming from like Jeffries and Schumer and like the head of the DNC, that in this moment to do that right now is insanely risky given the fact that the Republicans are in power right now, and they have the power right now to get rid of the filibuster and to pass legislation to expand the court. They can do that tomorrow. And they will 1000% do that if all of a sudden Democratic Party leadership comes out tomorrow in an organized salvo across all media channels trying to like whip support for this. And so I don't think that is an option that we have right now. To me, it's unacceptable that we would push Republicans to do that. I think that would be catastrophic. Like, as bad as things are right now, I think it would be so much worse if they, number one, just got rid of the filibuster in general, because once they get rid of the filibuster to pack the court, then now they can just, the filibuster's gone. They're just going to use that to pass legislation. And, you know, do they get rid of the ACA? Do they do an abortion ban? Do they, like ban porn or whatever, like all kinds of crazy Project 2025 shit that they have the majorities that they could do it with right now. Like, that's, to me, is a completely unacceptable risk that I just don't think that you're entertaining. You call it like fecklessness. You call it like a lack of fight, a lack of teeth. But I think your strategy is just like, you're just pure aggression. I don't think you're thinking about like the risks. I think you just feel this urgency and this anger and this rage, and you want to just fucking once into the breach, you just want to charge out of your trench and just like run right at them, right?
Yeah, I appreciate the candor on that. I think that, but I think what you've identified is that unless that the salience or the approval just organically on its own magically arrives at a number you're comfortable with, which seems to be a majority, then
why would you?
Just don't do anything.
But if you're looking at polls, right? If you're looking at a poll that says that only like 30% of the country supports Democrats packing the court, that's a tough issue, right?
Yeah, the way I look at it is political capital.
Take a long time.
You accrue political capital to invest. And I think that this is an incredibly important issue, whether the public realizes it or not, an existential one to this party, that Democratic leaders need to lead and to try to shape public opinion and to rally the base and make a persuasive case for why this court needs to be reformed and why it needs to be expanded. That's where we disagree. That's the heart of the frustration, which is, I know in theory, like if you had your druthers, you would also want the court expanded. You are unprepared to do anything about it. And you think that I'm willing to give everything.
No,
it is. It is because,
that's simply
not true. I'll ask you again, what is it that Democrats can do? Because
I'll answer it again. I already answered the question though.
Okay, what is it?
You would need to lay the foundation and somehow help to bring about a climate where you would have a mandate to do that. So you would have to sway public opinion.
You told me earlier
first.
that we would need to wait for a mandate to do it. Now you're saying we can create the mandate. You're giving us permission to do that.
No, I never said that Democrats need to have a completely passive role when it comes to a mandate forming, but you would have to do it really intelligently. And that I think necessarily includes having it not come from leadership. Like we can't be signaling to Republicans right now that we're just going to full-throatedly pursue this thing the next time we have power. Like that cannot come from leadership right now, because that will cause the Republicans to just preemptively do stuff right now while they have power.
Can I ask you something? I think you said this earlier while I was bouncing around and trying to find this poll for you before I jumped in. Didn't you say that, what was the polling on gerrymandering in California? What was it? What, not now, but what was it?
Well, California, like the voters here have always been, we've always been in favor of like more like fair kind of redistricting stuff. It was, I don't know what the polls were, but they were
Would you expect that at one point it probably
shifted?
Yeah, so it didn't have popular support until recently.
Right, but the California electorate is like 2/3 Democratic Party, and once you get the Democratic Party like leadership getting out there and like whipping support, I think it had a majority support, but I think the support went way up after they went out and did a messaging thing. I understand where you're going with this, but what is what is the risk in California? that would be analogous to the kind of risk that at the federal level that
I don't know about a specific risk to California. I think the risk which would ultimately affect California is if you don't gerrymander, as Newsom is making the case, then you're basically just stepping aside and allowing Republicans to run roughshod as they redistrict and gerrymander Democrats out of control.
Well, for the situation to be analogous, it would have to be a Republican administration in the governor's mansion in California, with the Democrats, pushing an issue that's like 30% approval, but it's just not analogous. There's just
that's why I was curious what the polling was prior to Newsom making this an issue.
I think they've been able to boost support by like 10 or 15 points or something like that.
10 or 15 points.
But again, this is just not the situation. I don't think you can say, well, see, the thing is happening in California, let's just do that at the federal level. It's just a totally different dynamic at the federal level. Like, Democrats are out of power right now. The party itself is being perceived as like weak and ineffective. It's not popular right now. And so I don't know, like, I think there's a bit of a situation right now where I don't want to live in this reality. I wish this wasn't the case, but I kind of suspect that in order for kind of like big change to occur in this country, there might have to be a touching of the stove kind of moment. Like, it might need to be the case that Donald Trump and the Republican Party break so much shit in this country that it, radically transforms the electorate. Like, if Donald Trump, for example, like truly like broke the economy, 100% tariffs on China is fucking insane. The consequences of that is going to be so that it's going to exceed any kind of economic headwinds that have emerged so far. These 100%, they're our third largest trading partner. China is huge. We do so much trade with them, and we're going to do 100% tariffs starting November 1st. That will be felt in a very, very painfully all over the country. So, like, if he plunges us into like a recession, a true recession, and we see unemployment jump up to like 10, 11%, and like, if the situation is that bad, then you have, in that moment, then you can pounce. Then you can for sure pounce and be like, we need to really seriously talk about like court reform and packing the court or whatever. I'm
not sure that there would necessarily be a relationship between those two things, because it's entirely possible that Trump could have, historic low approval and, Supreme Court reform still not be a salient issue or one with majority support. Again, I think what it comes down to is, and again, I appreciate you trying to answer, and I understand you're unpersuaded by me. I'm still unpersuaded by you. I'm not sure what this smart strategy is in a way that you would not take issue with it, because it seems like you're saying that Democrats shouldn't even talk about it, but that they should in a clever way. I don't know.
Just not leadership. It can't be coming from leadership. You can't be telling people we're going to do this thing when we get power. It has to come from like surrogates.
And why can't it come from leadership?
Hold on. You know the answer to this question.
No, I don't.
I already told you. Like, if it comes from leadership, if leadership is saying this is the direction our party is going, we are going to pursue these reforms once we get power, then the Republican Party will get rid of the filibuster and just add 10 more Supreme Court justices right now.
So you think that the Republicans would hold their powder dry on preemptively packing the court further still, only in as long as the Democratic leadership doesn't weigh in on this?
Yeah.
I don't know why that would be the case. That seems to, because I feel like the GOP is also the same sort of bad faith shitheads to be like, it doesn't really matter that Hakeem Jeffries hasn't weighed in on this, or Chuck Schumer. AOC's talking about this, and Bernie Sanders is talking about this, and actually more of them now.
Well, no, they already do that. I mean, they already do that. They already do that now. They go on Fox and they're like, they're obviously talking about packing the court. But do you see any indication that the Republican Party right now is going to like pack the court? Get rid of
but I'm not necessarily convinced that they would. I don't think that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are the secret sauce, that if they opine about something, then that's the green light for the Republicans.
Well, once it comes from leadership, that's a totally if it comes from leadership, then 1,000% that they're gonna pursue that when they have power.
But again, respectfully, like the previous leadership of the Democratic Party under Joe Biden, proposed a carve out for the filibuster to pass the Voting Rights Act, and he proposed pretty aggressive reforms to the Supreme Court, not necessarily expansion. And
the expansion Republicans is like, that's the nuclear option, right?
Well, but Republicans didn't immediately run with it on the next. I don't think it's fair to say, given how bad faith these people are, and they'll say one thing and then they'll pick it up when it's convenient. I don't think that the Republicans are committed to principle of a 9-seat Supreme Court or of a filibuster. And I don't think that they need an excuse necessarily from Democrats to do what they feel they need to do. I think that, let me put it to you like this. When Republicans do a thing, a bad thing, or they change norm, do they just simply defer to what they feel the leadership of the Democratic Party has said, or will they point to Bernie Sanders and AOC and others? Because I've seen examples of where.
What do you mean a bad thing?
When they change a law or an institution or a norm, or they a rule change or whatever, when they make some sort of procedural alteration to benefit themselves, do they just point to leadership, or do they also just point to really anything that they find convenient?
No, of course they frequently point to fringe Democrats to try to paint the whole party as extremists.
Yeah, so that's the way I look at it. I just genuinely don't believe that that they're just waiting until Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer says or does a thing, and then that's the moment that they greenlight. I think that for the Republicans, it genuinely is just a case-by-case basis, and for them, it's a matter of how much do we need to do this? What is the risk of this potentially blowing back on us?
Right now, there's no indication that they're going to pack the court. Like, there's none. Like, there's zero indication they're going to pack the court.
Yeah, what I'm saying is I'm not convinced that basically everybody but Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries could talk about it and the GOP would be okay with that. Like, I don't know. I don't think that they would need, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think that they would need Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, who are the two federal Democratic leaders, to weigh in on this before they decide to change a norm, change a rule, change a law, change procedure to do something which benefits them. I think they look at it as a case-by-case basis. And so I guess what I'm saying to you is if they do it your way, you're allowing Democrats to say, okay, the rank and file can talk about it more, and as long as leadership doesn't weigh in, that's the way to play it. But what if Republicans go, well, fuck, we see the writing on the wall. More and more Democrats are talking about it. Sure, it's not Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer. We might as well preemptively pack the court in advance further still. I guess what I'm saying is, doesn't your way also carry a lot of risk?
Well, everything's risky right now. But like, why don't we let me try to get at this a different way. Like,
sure.
What do you think would help Democrats take back power more? Running on court reforms or running on the economy? Like making people's paychecks go further, help, providing relief for families that are struggling to make ends meet, expanding like social welfare benefits. Like, what do you think would be more motivating for voters?
Probably kitchen table issues like that.
Well, there you go. I mean, I just feel like I just feel like I've never seen any real indication that, apart from like 2022 after Roe, but that didn't even last 2 years, right? Like, voters have not demonstrated that the court reforms is something that really motivates them. And I also just want to game out your kind of let's just play it out then, right? Like,
sure.
Tell me what. You're in charge of the Democratic Party right now. Like, day one, hit the ground running. What does your strategy look like in practice?
Are you talking about now or when we're back into power?
Right now, right now, right? You're saying that they should make court packing, I assume, like a central pillar of the party platform. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so I would probably, this is just me spitballing here, but I would probably say I would use this issue about the Voting Rights Act to be like, something to the effect of, all right, folks, so here's the deal. If you look at our policies on a blind test, right? You don't associate it with a particular name. You talk about just Democratic policies in general versus Republican. You just see the policy items. We know you support our agenda. You support, Obamacare. You support expanding the ACA. You support cheaper, more affordable health care. You support whatever the issue is. A right-wing Supreme Court, which is what we currently have, we have to face facts. They're going to cock block all of it. They're going to cock block of it, as much of it as possible, just like they did under Joe Biden, just like they're giving a green light to Donald Trump. These people are not nonpartisan actors. They are the Supreme Court, but they have a partisan edge. And so this party, the Democratic Party, we've tiptoed around this issue, but in the second Trump administration, as they've greenlit this, and I would name issues that they have allowed Trump to run roughshod over, as this Supreme Court has allowed Trump to run roughshod while simultaneously putting him above the law, as they take away your federal abortion protections, as they won't even police their own. They're engaging in egregious corruption, and I would cite the Clarence Thomas stuff. This Democratic Party has unfortunately just hoped that the Supreme Court would conduct itself in a nonpartisan, professional way. But we have Donald Trump, who's in the White House, who thinks he's a king above the law. And we also have 9 philosopher kings in robes who feel the same way. The Supreme Court needs to be changed. The truth is, if you ever put us back into power, they're going to try to stop so much of what we want to do because they support Trump, because they support MAGA. They are MAGA in robes. So in order to, have an agenda which you all clearly support, get through this court, in order to prevent court corruption, the sort of laws that regulate Congress, that, I can't accept a gift from more than $30 without reporting it or giving it back. This Supreme Court, their justices are getting millions of dollars in undisclosed gifts. They're the least democratic branch, the least accountable, and they're keeping it that way. And they're acting again as 9 God kings above the law. This court needs to be reformed, and it is practical. And here's how it affects you in a real way. So, Donald Trump has tried to get them to repeal and replace Obamacare. They took down, I can't remember what it was, the mandate or whatever. They made a carve out for Obamacare. They're allowing Trump to, initiate to continue his tariffs, which are raising your taxes for all intents and purposes. You're paying more because of Donald Trump's tariffs, which this Supreme Court is permitting. They're going out of their way, bending over backwards to let him harm you in the most egregious way, and then they're dragging their feet to stop him. This Supreme Court needs to be reformed. We need to expand the court, rebalance it, and we need to have binding codes of conduct to prevent corruption. You all hate corruption, right? I don't know. I would do that. Would be how I would try to tie it to the very tangible defeats, the very tangible losses that they've suffered under Trump. This court's permitted.
And you think you can, with this kind of messaging, a full 3 years removed from the next presidential election, you think you can shift public opinion like 30 points? In the next 3 years?
I'm not sure.
In the next
I'm not
3
sure.
years?
I'm saying I'm at the point, given the existential nature of this, I would much prefer we try that. I would much prefer we try to make it that we actually invest political capital to make it a higher salience issue and try to rally the base and rally support instead of just, do what we've done before, which is assume that, maybe one day the American people just naturally, organically say, you know what, I don't like the way that this court is structured, and maybe I'll give the green light for it to go through. That's what I think.
The only thing that I can think of that might support your position here, and I'm open to it, I'm open to this being possible, would be if you did something like that and it provoked an extreme reaction from Republicans, that could end up like really backfiring spectacularly, especially if it's in concert with a struggling economy. Voters, I think, will forgive a lot if they feel like their paycheck is going further, as is evidenced by Trump's win in November. Right. I think that was like the big motivating thing. But if the economy is doing poorly and then they do this, Democratic Party provokes them into doing this extreme action, then I can imagine that's backfiring spectacularly. I know it's difficult right now to believe that the Democratic Party could ever get, Obama level majorities ever again. But that it's not impossible. Like, this moment is very fraught, but it's not impossible. And things can change very, very quickly, especially if you have like a struggling economy. And so maybe that would backfire like really spectacularly, and it would lead to, even after the Voting Rights Act, it would lead to, Republicans having like a really strong majority. But I don't know. There's just just a lot of risk with what it's not even the risk of the Republicans preemptively packing the court. That to me is not even the most immediate risk. The most immediate risk to me, I think, is if they just get rid of the filibuster. If they just get rid of the filibuster, then, you know, like, I love the filibuster when we're out of power and I hate it when we're in power.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, it's a tool. I mean, but look, they've been further weakening the filibuster since Trump's been back in office. They have not abandoned it entirely, I think, because they recognize that that's again, that would allow Democrats, if and when they got back into power, to, pass more progressive legislation. And generally speaking, like when McConnell refused to abolish the filibuster in Trump term 1, because Trump wanted him to, Trump's like, no, McConnell, excuse me, was like, no, I'm good with it, because the shit that I really care about, which are tax cuts and judges, I can get through just fine with the filibuster, because we've already done carve outs for judges and we have reconciliation for tax cuts. And so I think that that's another reason, is that most of the Republican agenda, the big shit that they care about, judges and tax cuts, they can usually get through by sidestepping the filibuster. They don't have to get rid of it wholesale. But I don't believe that they have a principled commitment to it. And I think that they'll discard at the moment that they think that, they actually really want to do something that they all give a shit about, not just Trump, but John Thune and Mike Johnson.
It is holding for now. Like, it is holding for now. Like, it does have enough. I mean, there are, like, the Senate, that's where the grown-ups are, kind of like the quote unquote grown-ups. Like, the House is more chaotic, but there's a lot of, like,
they just make carve-outs for it.
I understand that, but it's still, there's not a real risk right now of them getting rid of the filibuster to do, like, legislation, just regular legislation. I know they've done carve-outs for the One Big Beautiful Bill. I don't know if they did a filibuster carve-out, did they? I think it was more, that had to do with the Senate parliamentarian. I think they just ignored the Senate parliamentarian, because the Senate parliamentarian said that the reason, so like the Republicans permanently, I think, extended Trump's tax cuts. And the rationale they used was that the tax cuts that were in place, that were passed in 2017, were treated as like existing policy instead of a new policy, which would need to break a filibuster. I think they just ignored the filibuster. I don't know if they broke a filibuster or got rid of the filibuster. Maybe that's
they didn't get rid of the filibuster. What I'm saying is they bent procedure to sidestep the filibuster. Yeah, you can do that with the nuclear option, or you can do that with other procedural gimmicks.
Yeah, no, I understand. But
6 of one, half a dozen of another.
You understand what I mean, though. Like, there's not right now. They do not appear even close to being poised to get rid of the filibuster.
No, I don't. And I don't think that they would ever just abolish the filibuster outright. I think that they would do, again, what they've usually done, which is the shit that they care about, they will just simply make more and more exceptions for the filibuster, or try to sidestep it in other ways. And I don't think just getting rid of it outright is something that they would do, again, not out of principle, but because they don't have to. I don't think they would take it that far. And again, that's kind of my mindset about why I'm still not convinced that if they thought the Democrats were looking to expand the court, that they would just add 60 justices, because they could do that. But it's like they already have a 6-3 conservative supermajority who, for the most part, gives them what they want. So to me, it's pretty analogous in that way. But again, yes, of course, they could abolish the filibuster tomorrow if they want. And I agree that they're not poised to, because I think that they're getting, for the most part, what they want anyway with the shit that they're currently doing. But no, look, at the end of the day, I just keep coming back to, I don't see it. Set aside Supreme Court reform, just set all of that aside. When you see this situation come up, where, again, on the balance of probability, the VRA is done, probably. What's the answer to that? Vote harder clearly isn't going to work. So, like, the reason that I'm ready to break glass in case of emergency is because I don't just see this as a major policy. It's not like Biden wanting to.
You don't have the leverage. You don't have the leverage to break the glass right now. I think that's the point I'm making. What position are the Democratic Party to break the glass? What does that even mean right now?
No, break the glass. Break the glass isn't pack the court or whatever. Break the glass is actually start making it, like, investing enormous political capital to try to make it a popular, high salience issue.
Yeah, I mean, I
think motivate voters.
So I agree with that strategy, but the point I'm making is that I think that you need to just be so fucking careful about how, like, it cannot just be a strategy of just like, okay, day one blitzkrieg, we just go and we just blast out our plans, and just like, it has to be something that is like it's a plan that's like thought about in terms of like years and not necessarily like months. You're not going to change that opinion like really, really fast. And you have to be careful about the kind of rhetoric that you use and what kind of intentions that you signal because you could provoke an extreme reaction from Republicans. And so I don't know if the Democrats right now are in a very strong position to be the ones making the case for this kind of thing right now. Like maybe that situation is different in a year from now. Maybe the
I feel like I feel like we're Joker and Batman. We're destined to do this forever because, look, man, I understand we can't beautifully demark this with a bright line, but it's like provoke the Republicans into an extreme response. I mean, like I thought you said this. Maybe I had it confused with another Live and Learn co-host, but like, dude, they were fucking calling Barack Obama a communist and campaigning on this shit back in 2008, and he was as fucking neoliberal. Biden is the least neoliberal president in modern American history.
That's just the political machine, though. I'm talking about we have to when I'm talking about the Senate, right? Like when we're talking about the Senate, you know, first of all, it's like it isn't a monolith, right? But when we're talking about the Senate, there are people that principally support the filibuster in the Senate, like lots and lots of senators on both sides of the aisle that just principally support the filibuster. That's not some like made up thing. Like I think Thune, like full on institutionally, he supports the filibuster. Like it's not something that they're just itching to get rid of. Do you know what I mean?
I don't think they're itching to abolish it wholesale either. I don't. But I don't think like I put McConnell and Thune more or less in the same boat in terms of people who are not like taking a fucking wrecking ball to the Senate for no reason, but I don't think he has a principled commitment to the filibuster. I genuinely believe if John Thune thought, you do?
Yeah.
You think they both do or just Thune?
No. Well, they both do. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. We fundamentally disagree on that one. But yeah, I as far as like,
they did the fucking carve out for the filibuster for judicial appointments. Yeah. In fairness, Harry Reid did the same thing when he was Senate Majority Leader as a Democrat.
Okay, two things. Well, wait a minute. Two things. I don't think that Harry Reid had a principled commitment to the filibuster either. And number two, we can do this infinite regress. I do this with Wick all the time. Why did Harry Reid make a carve out for the filibuster?
Because the Republicans were totally obstructing judicial appointments. And so
to an unprecedented degree, right?
Yeah.
Like not, yeah.
No.
Right. So, I mean, he didn't wake up one morning and say, well, fuck the filibuster. He begged McConnell, stop doing this, or I'm not going to let you just totally bring this presidency to a halt.
Yeah.
So he had his reasons for doing so. And McConnell, the reason that he did with the Supreme Court justice is because he wanted Gorsuch to pass, and Democrats weren't allowing that to happen. So plus he promised in advance, he's like, if you do this, I'm just going to retaliate. But yeah, I don't think any of them have a principled commitment to the filibuster. I think that you don't make exceptions for that sort of thing if you do. Well, if you think that, listen, I believe in, super majorities or qualified majorities making decisions in a bipartisan way, then there would be no exceptions made.
Well, why didn't McConnell blow up the filibuster for regular legislation when he was leader?
Well, he was very clear about that because tax cuts and judges are what he gave a fuck about. And he has reconciliation for tax cuts. And he already made a filibuster carve out for Supreme Court justices. And I'll point out it's not a filibuster, but it's a form of it's a anti-majoritarian control. The blue slip in the Senate Judiciary Committee, McConnell's Senate majority under Republicans, they wiped out the blue slip rule, which allowed basically Trump, basically the blue slip, if you're Senator Hutch from California and I'm President Jessiah and I have a Supreme Court, or if I have a judicial nominee of any kind, you can say, hey, Mr. President, I don't like this nominee. I'm withholding my blue slip. You need to pick a different nominee. And that's been the tradition for decades, bipartisan. And McConnell got rid of it. Chuck Grassley got rid of it. He was the chairman under McConnell in the Senate Judiciary Committee because they just wanted to rubber stamp Trump getting his judicial nominees through at a circuit court level. So this idea that the GOP is committed principally to anti-majoritarian institutions, like, no, they're smart about, they're clever. They're like, we're not going to cut off more than what we think we need at the time, but they're absolutely willing to if it's a high enough of a priority.
I have not seen any indication that leadership in both parties are signaling like a serious intention to like get rid of the filibuster. I think the Senate.
No, but I'm not claiming that.
I think the Senate is packed to the gills with people that very much want that filibuster to remain in place, and there's no reason to think that they're gonna get rid of the filibuster anytime soon.
I'm not claiming that. I want to be clear. I'm not claiming that either party is seriously planning on getting rid of the filibuster. I'm saying that I don't think they have a principled commitment to it. It's like getting rid of abolishing the filibuster wholesale is a massive move. And for the longest time, I was against it. As a Democrat, I was just like, just make more exceptions. Because for precisely the reason you laid out, I like the fact that the filibuster is there right now, stopping stopping Republicans on some things. Like right now, the government shutdown, but that could change tomorrow. They could change it. So my position for most of the past like 6 years was don't just get rid of it wholesale, just make more and more exceptions. And then I kept hearing, well, then the GOP is going to make more and more exceptions. Fine, who cares? And then if we slowly whittle it away, so be it. At least it offers some sort of like versatile tool on the table in the meantime, rather than just snapping your fingers and wiping it out. But I don't think it's a principled commitment to that. I think that they will get rid of what they think they need to get rid of in order to pass the shit they care about most. And the thing they care about most, tax cuts and judges, they don't need to get rid of the filibuster. And the thing they did need to get rid of the filibuster for, judges, they already did.
Okay. Well, apart from the conversation about like all that, I think I'm having a bit of a Chuck Schumer moment here. I think that's where we're sort of.
You're aroused?
I am very aroused every time we speak. And I'm wearing gray sweatpants, so if I stood up, it would really show. But
you knocked the fucking table over. I understand.
But I think I'm having a Chucky Schumer moment here because the case that he made back in I think March for not picking that fight right then was that basically the Democrats just didn't have enough or really any leverage in that moment to like pick a fight over like an unpopular like issue. And his logic was he wanted to wait until now to pick that fight when Donald Trump's popular support will have cratered and he would be in
he acknowledged position. I don't think that's quite right. He acknowledged they had leverage. He just felt that two things. Trump was not that sweet spot where he felt that he could be even more popular and the leverage down the road.
Well, that's what I mean by leverage. I mean, like he had institutional leverage in that they did have the power to block, but he's saying like in terms of the leverage during the negotiations, they didn't really have strong leverage. Like Donald Trump was still on a bit of the honeymoon period, and the Democrats were in a really rough spot. And to be honest with you, I think old Chucky boy was a bit vindicated. I think he was right. Like I think I'm
not surprised that you think that at all.
But I think the fact that they didn't pick that fight then strengthens their position now.
Hey, it's not inclusive. They could have picked both fights, quite frankly. But no, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about.
I think he was right about that because when you look at the situation now, I think they are in a stronger position because they didn't just like swing for the fences right away. And I think like that's all I'm suggesting here. I'm just suggesting that you need to pick your spots. You need to.
How do you think he's been vindicated? That's where I'm confused because it's not like it's mutually exclusive. You either use this leverage in March or April or whenever.
I mean, he was just right. Like he was right that Donald Trump's popularity will have plummeted by fall and would give them more leverage in a negotiation. He was just right about that objectively.
Well, I don't think anyone contested the idea that Trump's approval rating was likely to be lower as time went on.
You didn't know. Wait, hang on. I don't know. I feel like we were having conversations on Live and Learn about like, I don't know if he's going to be more popular this time around. I really don't know.
Well, no, we didn't know if he was going to be more popular this time around, but I think we all agreed that on the balance of probability with Trump and really with most presidents, as time goes on, they become less popular. I don't think that was the sticking point with Schumer. With Schumer, that wasn't what people disagreed over. The idea that we have to wait until Trump is even less popular than he is now. I mean, again, fuck it. Just keep doing continuing resolutions, and then wait another year. He's probably going to be more popular in a year than he is now, right? That was kind of the point, is like this idea of, no, we need to wait. Okay, till when? Till he's less popular. Okay, well, why now in
a
October?
Stronger position because he's less popular.
Yeah, but he might be popular next October 2026.
I mean, unlikely.
You don't think so?
Unlikely. I mean, presidents usually don't turn their popularity around. I mean, like Obama and Clinton did, but
I'm saying he might be. Wait, maybe I misspoke. I'm saying he's probably going to be less popular in October 2026 than he is right now.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, probably maybe a few points. I don't know what his total basement is, but I would suspect.
But that's my point. Is it wasn't this idea of like, okay, Trump is going to be less popular as time goes on. It was your base wants a fight now. They want to fight now. They want to see that you've got teeth now.
It's not just
and
about
there's
the
nothing
base.
about. And there's nothing.
It's not just about the base, though. It's not just about the base. Like when you're talking about like leverage in a budget fight, that resulted in a government shutdown. The center is just as important as your own base. Like if the center perceives the Democratic Party as overreaching after a pretty brutal election for them, then that reduces their leverage in a negotiation. But the fact that like even the center right now, is backing Democrats at a higher level than they are Trump, and they're blaming Trump more, that stuff really matters. Like Pelosi was on a Sunday show, I think she did an interview, and she was talking about the importance of just like public opinion and how that really influences these kinds of negotiations. And I think she's right. Like, and the more that Donald Trump leans into the unhinged shit and fires thousands of federal workers, and he's just going to make his position even weaker as they go on. The Democrats are just looking stronger and stronger in this fight right now. And
I understand all of that. I agree with all of that. And I would probably agree with you that if it's like, okay, we only get to play this card once, do we play it while he is at the peak of his popularity or far from the nadir of his unpopularity? Or do we wait until he's less popular? Then I would agree with you, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
But it would have made this fight more difficult, I think. I think if you already put out this perception that you're overstepping and you're abusing procedure or whatever, if that's how and that would have been the risk of doing it back then, of just like, really, you guys are going to do this right now in the first like month. I think it makes this moment a lot more tenuous. People would be like, oh, are they overstepping again? Right. But because they didn't do that, because they chose to pick their fights and wait for the better opportunity, then they have an advantage right now. That advantage might not be here if Schumer would have picked that fight back then.
Maybe not, but maybe not. Again, we don't know, but again, I just don't see this as vindication for Schumer precisely because we don't know what would have happened if he had played this card back in, again, March or April or whenever it was, and here, or one or the other. Like we just don't know. That's the point. And the other thing I'll say is, can't we just like extrapolate this logic to any sort of counterfactual? Like Democrats are vindicated no matter what, because like, hey, it's bad now or it's successful now, and we don't know if it could have been worse or more successful if we'd played it differently.
What fight did you want? I mean, what would you have wanted to pick a fight about last time?
Can you just address that? Can you just address that part first? About how do you make a determination that the Democrats made a mistake or that they weren't vindicated whenever they do anything?
Well, I think the most important metric right now, while they're out of power, is public approval. Like it's like what the voters themselves think. That's how I would gauge that kind of thing. Because what else I don't know how else you would gauge success.
But we don't have an apples to apples comparison, right? Because he didn't do this back in April. So it's not like we can compare approval for the shutdown, disapproval for the shutdown in March versus now, right? We have nothing to compare it to.
Well, what did you want him to shut the government down for back in March? Doge cuts? Is that really what we were talking about? Like,
yeah, and Doge was wildly unpopular. Excuse me, at the time.
In March,
it could have been, but it was also, I think, now I'm getting my timeline confused. Wasn't there when was the one big beautiful bill passed?
July or August, I think. July, I think it was, or June. Might have been June.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the highlight was the Doge cuts at the time of the first thing. Like, yeah, why not? Why would that have been a bad thing to do a shutdown over?
again, the risk would be that the perception would be that you're blowing your wad way too early. Like you're picking a fight way too early.
Yeah, and so no, again, I take your point. I think that was always overreach. A potential.
It's perceived
I think that
overreach. That is a thing in politics where parties are punished for perceived overreach. I mean, it happened when Clinton was president, when they tried to impeach him over the blowjob thing. That actually kind of backfired on them in the moment.
Excuse me, it was lying. It was perjuring himself. It was not over the blowjob. Right. How dare you? Yeah. But no, I mean, again, I take your point. I think that was always a risk. We just felt that the risk was worth it. But again, set all that aside. At what point then can we disagree or say that Democrats are not vindicated in anything they do? Because can we? If they, do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah. If the public blamed Democrats more for the shutdown, and if they supported, Donald Trump and Republicans more, and they perceived if the Democrats were perceived as overreaching, then that would be a failure, and it would weaken their position in future fights as well.
No. Maybe we're talking past each other. Maybe I'm just not getting it. Whenever the Democrats make a decision, what's to stop me from saying that was the right call every time, even if it didn't work? Because the alternative could have been worse.
I think I understand what you're saying, but
yeah, I'm trying not to straw man you, but I think you have a bad habit of just swallowing anything that they do by saying the alternative could have been worse, and because you don't know, right?
I mean, to be fair, I think you minimize
right. No, I understand. I know that you've got that perception of me. I take your point. That's why I'm just being candid with you. I think that if Democrats do anything, your inclination is that was the right call, because the alternative could have been worse.
I don't think that's true. I've had plenty.
Well, that's why I'm asking you, how can you determine if the Democrats do a thing, even if it fails? What's to stop me from playing Hutch's advocate, the Hutch's advocate, and saying, okay, yeah, Hutch, I know you're saying that this was a bad decision because it didn't succeed, but if they had played it a different way, it could have failed even worse. It could have been even greater failure.
I mean, I would have no problem telling you that I think Kamala Harris, we talked about this 1,000 times, that Kamala Harris made, the Harris campaign made a huge mistake by, ignoring the alternative media space, largely ignoring it.
How do we know?
I don't know.
If she could have gone on Joe Rogan and made a bigger ass out of herself.
We would look at the demographic shifts, especially with younger voters who are listening to podcasts more than they are, the news on CNN. We could point to concrete, tangible metrics of where she slid in her support.
But that actually doesn't prove your point, right? What you're providing is evidence that she failed. You're providing evidence that she failed to secure, support from key demographics. What if I said her going on Joe Rogan actually would have made it worse because she would have further alienated people because she's so uncharismatic?
You would have to get into more details about the possibilities for it becoming worse, right? And it would have you would have to make a compelling argument. Right now, we're just talking about hypotheticals. And the argument that I'm telling you, the reason why I think this is because Donald Trump and the Republicans had more support from the public back then. That's just a measurable thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And since then,
they did.
And since then, Donald Trump's support, particularly when we're talking about independence, has just fallen off of a fucking cliff. It's dropped 30 or 40 points. That is actually a huge difference. And that alone gives Democrats so much more leverage to choose now for this fight. And they're also choosing a fight that is really popular for that. Healthcare is one of their stronger positions, one of their stronger issues, protecting healthcare or whatever.
So I would just say 2 points to that, just again, trying to game this out. Again, yeah, I totally agree with you that in terms of Trump's approval rating and the Republicans' approval rating, it's worse now than it was back in April and March. Yeah. So again, if knowing that to be true, and I agree that was always likely to be the case, on probability that Trump was likely to be more popular or more unpopular as time went on, knowing that is likely to be the case, if we only had one shot and we could see the time horizon for what it is, I think that's a pretty credible argument. But why not do it both? Why not do it in March and then do it again in October?
I keep trying to explain why, though. I feel like we're circling.
No, we're looping because you actually have no evidence to disprove the idea that would have been a bad idea. You have no evidence to support that. We could have done both.
Would you
That's
agree?
What I'm saying. You're claiming.
Would you agree?
Or why couldn't we have just waited till October of next year?
Let me just put it this way. Do you agree that if the Democrats would have swung for the fences back in March And I don't even know what they would realistically hope to accomplish with negotiations at that point. Do you agree with the idea that if they would have swung for the fences and then that was perceived as overreach, that it would make the current fight, which is over something that you and I agree is worth fighting for? The Medicaid cuts are substantial, and they will result.
I think they were both. Just to be clear, I think both fights were worth picking. I think the Doge cuts, like trying to force Trump to heel on Doge, I absolutely think that was a fight worth picking. Just to be clear,
I'm just not sure that they had any realistic win conditions for picking a fight back then. But do you agree with the idea that if they picked that fight back then and it was perceived as overreach, do you agree that right now they would be in a weaker position?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. Then how do you not believe that Chucky Boy was not? Why would you say he wasn't vindicated then?
Because my position is not knowing then what we know now, or knowing then what we know now, that this fight just self-contained over healthcare when his approval rating is lower. I'm not saying that is as risky or more risky than the fight I wish Schumer would have also picked back in April. But that's not vindicating Chuck, in my opinion. Chuck said it was too risky. Not that it was risky, or not even that it was more risky. It was too risky, and it's not even that it would backfire per se. His argument was at the time, the reason that he said that he wasn't going to support a shutdown is because it would give Trump extraordinary discretion during a government shutdown.
I think that's what he said, but I think he was more about the public perception. Like, I think that's what I think. I don't think
maybe it's both. But going on his publicly stated reasons, that actually cuts against Schumer, because you can make the case that Trump's discretion is more powerful now than it was back then, because he's gone through with a bunch of fucking rescissions and unconstitutional, well, I thought was unconstitutional clawbacks that the Supreme Court has tolerated, which also gets us back, of course, to the Supreme Court, which is like, yeah, they're like, yeah, sure, Congress has the power of the purse, but the president can effectively neutralize that by refusing to spend, federal money on shit that's congressionally allocated. I actually could even make the case, too, that there is no win condition for Democrats here, at least legislatively, because let's say Trump comes to the table and negotiates something vis-a-vis healthcare or the ACA subsidies. What's to stop him from just doing a majority rescission cut after the shutdown? What if Democrats, this is part of the problem. John Favreau and Ezra Klein are talking about this too, that anything that the Republicans agree to, we actually have no reason to trust them at all, because Trump has been reneging on this shit. Like, yeah, I'll refuse to spend the money on it, or we'll do, because rescission packages only require 51 votes. Yeah, we'll agree, get Schumer to the table, 60 votes to get through the filibuster. We pass this budget or this continuing resolution, and then in 2 weeks we'll go back with 51 votes and claw this shit back. I think they've done that already this year.
I think what's going on here, sweet brother Jessiah, is that, like, I view politics similarly to how I view chess, in that your position really matters. I don't know how much you know about chess, but like your position, the pawn structure, your king safety, all of that, whether or not you control the center, all of this is just crucially important if you're going to set up some kind of a checkmate situation. And if you just aggressively start throwing every pawn, 4 squares down the board, and you just give up all your defenses, and you just launch a really kind of like uncoordinated attack with little to no thought, like a thoughtful chess player who knows what they're doing, they're just going to annihilate your position and then pick you off quite easily. Like, I think that it makes sense in politics, just like in a chess game, to try to anticipate where you think the board is going to be like 10, 15 moves away, which is really, really difficult. But you have to be forward thinking, and you have to always be considering the strength of your position. You have to be able to look at the board and evaluate, like, where am I weak? Where am I strong? And then you address the weaknesses and try to advance your strengths. You and I felt like Econoboy and certainly Pisco, you guys are of the mind that the Democrats just need to be this like constant like fight mode, and I just don't think that aligns with the broad American electorate. I think you guys think that it's just as simple as like, okay, if it's only 30% of the country that supports quarterbacking right now, you know, it's just as simple as just like, we got to have the most charismatic people go out there and we can just, you know, shift public opinion like 30 points in a matter of like a couple years. And I just don't know how realistic that is. And my frustration, and then I'll pass it over to you, but like my frustration with a lot of like Democratic voters right now is like, they just want to see a fight. And to me, that is like so dumb. Like, I don't care about like seeing a fight. I care more about like, well, when is the fight to our advantage? Like when do we pick a fight where it actually creates leverage and actually builds goodwill with voters and improves the standing of the party and is effective at foiling Trump? Like, those are the things. How effective are your fights is the more important question. And this superficial desire to see a constant 24/7 fight on everything, I think, is wildly emotional and not rational at all.
I appreciate that. I could go through and I could say, and I could try to correct you that I don't want a 24/7 fight, and I don't want to fight on every issue. But that's your perception of me, and that doesn't matter. Okay, so we could quibble. I could talk about all the times that you and I have agreed, and we have been allies against people who are like, no, Democrats need to swing at everything, everywhere, all at once. But I understand the moment that that's your perception of me. I'm going to give you my perception of you. That you are not proactive. Your default assumption is anything that Democrats do, anything, must be the right move or vindicated, because you can't entertain a counterfactual where, you know, taking a risk might have yielded a more beneficial result. You're doing it right here with Chuck Schumer. And again, we could do this with literally everything, any Democratic success or failure. I could out Hutch you. I could just say, I need you to show me where that was actually the wrong decision. You can't disagree with that, Hutch. That was the right decision, because the alternative could have been worse. It could have been worse. And we could just come up with all sorts of bullshit hypotheticals about how that could have been worse. Kamala Harris was obviously the perfect candidate. Well, no, she couldn't have been because she lost. Well, I need you to show me where a better candidate would have won, or a different candidate would have won. I need you to show me where having a primary, a contested primary, would have been better than just simply anointing Kamala the Democratic nominee. I need you to show me because she lost, but it could have been a total fucking sweep. If we'd played it anything else.
Well, your whole thing is hypothetical.
Wait a minute. Let me finish. You gave your perception of where I'm coming from.
That's fair.
And I'm giving you my perception of where you're coming from, right? Because I understand your frustration. I get it. And I hate that I'm giving you that impression that all I want to do in literally every instance is fight. I hate that, because I don't think that's accurate. You're frustrating me because you give me the impression of somebody who never wants to fight, and who only wants to fight when we're 1 inch away from success, which isn't going to happen. Right. And who says,
how is that true? How is that true, though?
You stop it right now. You stop it.
We're fighting right now, and I support it wholeheartedly, bro.
No, wait a minute.
I never want to fight.
I
love the fight that we're doing right now. This is this is a phenomenal fight.
Listen. I think if Schumer kicked the can down the road again, if he had done what he did in April, in 2 months, you would have been saying, yeah, that was the right move to make. That's what I think. I think you, to the extent that you support the fight. Wait a minute.
I think Schumer did not pick the fight right.
I think
that is not true. We talked about it. We talked about it on the podcast, bro. I told you they should pick this fight right now.
You said on the podcast that they probably should have picked it back then. You supported it back then. Now you said he was vindicated.
Because
you change your stop it. You stop it. You stop it. You change your mind based on what they do. Your default heuristic.
I proactively told you we should pick this fight before they picked it. I said, this is the time to pick the fight.
You said it, but you said it back in March, bro. You were pissed at Schumer back in March.
Do I not get to change my mind if I get some kind of updated information?
I understand what I'm saying.
When I saw the strength of their fight right now, it contextualized Schumer's decision back then, and it made me think like, well, he might have been right.
I understand. What I'm saying is I believe that if Schumer had not picked a fight in October, you would be saying in December or January that was the right move to make.
No.
Yes. Okay. That's fine.
100%.
That's fine. I'm giving you my perception of you.
Your perception is completely erroneous. Like, I was on the record saying for like months leading into this moment right now that this is a fight that they have to pick, like especially like over healthcare. I said, I think I even said I would be massively disappointed and shocked if they didn't pick this fight right now. If they would have said like, no, now's not the right time, I would have 1000% been right there alongside you saying, this is fucking crazy. Like that is actual fecklessness. There's no way that I would have like weaseled out of that by saying, well, I don't know. Because there would have been no sense to that whatsoever.
Okay. All
and
right.
I remember even when we had the conversation back in March, I remember even saying like, maybe like Chuck might be right, but it just feels like politically the wrong decision for him to make right now. But I agree
that you were less resolute. I agree that you were less resolute back in March than you were before this fight. I do agree with you there. Yeah. So to finish, as I was saying, the Supreme Court, I think you recognize, is an existential threat. And I don't think that you have much, that you will permit much by way of margin of error in trying to address that. Because you say, I think you think you can just swing 30 points in 3 years. I specifically did not make that claim. I said we should try. And this is why I'm saying, this is where we're just destined to do this forever. I'm not going to sit here and go back and litigate every claim you made. You gave me your broad conception of your frustration of where I'm coming from. I could just as easily say you misrepresented me because you just said that I thought that I can swing public opinion 30 points in 3 years.
Well, that's what
I specifically said.
That's what it would take, right?
I understand. And I specifically said, I'm not sure that can be done, but I think it's worth trying, right? You, on the other hand, seem to offer very little room by way of creating the circumstances for victory, that those circumstances have to effectively be handed to us and we simply exploit it. And that's just not going to happen. I'm not convinced it's going to happen. I think that politicians don't simply react to public sentiment. I think they shape public sentiment in part as well. I think it's a feedback loop. And I think the thing is, I'm at the point, and I've been at this point, and I feel that the threat that we're under now from this decision by the court further vindicates my position, is this is something that we should have been investing political capital in much sooner. I think that we should have made the court reform, court expansion, reining in this partisan court a bigger deal than what it was.
Do you think Obama should have campaigned on legalizing gay marriage when he was in the primary against Hillary?
I can't remember what the polling was at the time. I don't know if he should have campaigned on it. I think he should have over time, I think, expressed support for it, or had his vanguards. I think Biden was the first major politician to come out and do it. But here's the thing, not to get crass and throw gay people under the bus, but I think the threat posed by this Supreme Court is more existential than lack of gay marriage.
No, I understand, but I'm just
I don't think it's an apples.
I'm just making the point that I think everybody knew that Obama, supported gay marriage, but took a
100%. It was just a public posture,
right?
Yeah.
And I think that was the correct move.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was. I think it was smarter to wait to try to pounce on that. He eventually did pounce on that, but gay marriage, like support for gay marriage, had been steadily rising for years before he took a position. The trend line really kind of stayed consistent. Like after he endorsed it, like it just kept going up, but that trend had already been going. It was just that's just a good example of like picking your fight.
Do you think, so I guess to wrap this up, do you think Obama helped shape opinion on gay marriage, or you're saying he was just simply reactive? He waited until the culture moved at a point where he could strike.
He objectively waited. Okay. Yes, he did.
Now I'm asking you again. I appreciate you bringing that example, because this is where I feel like I'm getting mixed messages. So, is that what you want Democrats to do with the Supreme Court? Just wait.
In a very essentially yes. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So,
not hold on. Not necessarily wait totally passively. Like I think there are ways that you can start injecting certain kind of messaging to sort of start like shifting things, to try to influence things that the public moves towards your position. But it has to be kind of subtle. It has to be kind of shrewd. It has to be done very carefully, because the risk of it just blowing up and totally backfiring, I think in this moment when they have power, is pretty substantial. Like at minimum, Jessiah, I don't think we should be talking about this. Like I might be willing to entertain your strategy if like we win the midterms. You know, like if we go into the midterms and we still don't have a majority after that, then I don't know what the right move is.
Well, and I want to be clear. You know? I totally agree with you that now I just want to be very clear about this. I don't think now is the most optimal time to be having this conversation. Okay. I think it was in 2023 and 2024. I think the second the immunity decision came out, that's when I would have been like, okay. Because again, reportedly, this was Biden's whole position too, which is why he finally fucking came out for shit that he'd never endorsed before. The immunity decision is what tipped him over. I think Democratic institutionalists...
We were in a pretty weak position in 2023. I mean, I don't understand the logic. We were in a pretty weak position in 2023. Where did he have the leverage to... You know, you wanted an unpopular president who people thought was demented to lead the charge again. Like, I'm not seeing what you're seeing.
Wait, why did they bring it up in 2024? He was even weaker in 2024.
Well, they brought up reforms. They didn't bring up packing the court.
Hutch, and again, maybe this, I'm happy to disaggregate this. We need we absolutely, in my opinion, need court expansion, but we need all kinds of court reform. If you want to come back to me and say, Jessiah, on this, and this, we can fucking shout from the rooftops right now, but this other thing, we need to hold off. That's at least a compromise we can get to. So I'm just putting it all into the blanket.
No, that was my position. That is my position. If you want to have Democratic leadership go out there to starting today talking about, and in fact, I think they already do this. I think this already is their position that they want to do court reforms. I don't know if it's like a central pillar of the party. I don't know.
It's not right. They've been public about that's my point. Is
that's fine. But we need to disentangle court reforms with court packing. Court packing is the czar bomba of like options when it comes to the courts.
Do you know what Republicans did when the Senate Judiciary Committee talked about having a binding code of conduct for the justices back in 2023? The Republicans went apeshit on this. Oh my God, they're trying to interfere with the court. Democrats are trying to rig and interfere with the court because, you know.
But it wasn't court packing though. There is a difference.
I do understand, but what I'm saying is.
Court packing is a significant escalation that goes well beyond court reforms. It's like a 10 if court reforms are a 3.
I understand that, but what I'm saying, like, this is just a fundamental disagreement. I think that because Republicans are going to pounce on, like, you know, like the fucking Intel thing, like of Trump, you know, taking what is it, that 5 or 10% stake in Intel from the federal government's perspective, just objectively the most fucking communist policy we've seen in the United States in decades. Don't you like? I guess this is where I'm different. At that point, I'm like, okay. Not still saying that we shouldn't phrase things carefully, but I don't really give a fuck about what what Republicans accuse us of, nor should I think any Democratic politician moving forward, because
it's not about that. It's just about the center, bro. That's it. I mean, it doesn't matter like what MAGA, you know, like MAGA has demonstrated that they can kind of.
I understand. I know that inherently on principle you don't care what Republican politicians say or do either. But why do you think Republican politicians say that? Why do you think they tarn federal Obama, Biden?
Before I even get to that question, I've heard this logic, this exact same logic, to justify why defund the police. We shouldn't have, you know, like adopted different messaging. They use the same logic where it's like, well, the Republicans are just going to call you extremists anyways, so you don't really need to actually, you know, be thoughtful about your rhetoric. I think this is really stupid.
No, that's why I said. That's why I said, right. So this is why I don't take, when you say, that's not what I said. I don't take that seriously because I just fucking said, not that you shouldn't be careful with your words.
But then you use this rationale that contradicts that. Do you see what you're doing? You're kind of talking out of both sides of your mouth.
Oh my God, bro. No, I'm saying that we'll skip to the end. I think Republicans say this shit about Kamala and Biden and Obama all being communists because they're trying to actively shape the narrative, not just for the right, but also for the center. Yeah. And I think that, and I think that Democrats are not simply obligated to just accept the narrative as it is. I think that they can shape the narrative. And I think that they should also care a bit less about what Republicans have to say. I think that they should be more proactive than reactive. And I think this idea that we have to run that we have to shape our approach based on what Republicans accuse us of being is just bullshit at this point. I don't think it's gotten us much by anywhere, because here you have Trump actively engaging in the sort of policy that he would have accused Kamala of with great fucking success a year ago. And he's doing it shamelessly. And I think their shamelessness is their superpower. And I think we should try to adopt some of that approach in our own politics and our own campaigning to the extent that we're able. But as far as the court thing is concerned, which we got off in this fucking tangent. As far as the court thing is concerned, I still think that.
Did you agree with me that you probably shouldn't start like publicly talking about?
Oh, that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying.
The midterms, right?
Right. That's what I was saying. I think we should have done this earlier. And you asked, well, why earlier? And because I think that they were at their nadir in terms of approval rating after the Dobbs decision.
At their nadir, though, even at their nadir, the public opinion about this issue is nowhere close to what they needed it to be to justify doing it. Like if you do something like that with 30% of support, I mean, you're gonna get punished massively by voters. That's the risk. Like the backlash is always a risk. And so, this idea that I always think that the Democrats should wait is just wrong. Like, picking the healthcare fight made perfect sense in 2009 after the election was had. And, we had a brief window of time where we had enough votes to actually do stuff like that. And, the fights that Biden picked when he was president and he was negotiating with Manchin and Sinema, I think he did that really intelligently.
When did Democrats, again, I'm confused. When did Democrats ever make a mistake by acting or not acting? Because again, I take your point. I understand what you're trying to say. Hey, listen, I support action. I support action when Democrats take it. Well, again, that goes to, I think your default is because you move positions on this with Schumer, and I understand well, it's because I've got new information. I think a lot of it is your default heuristic is what they do is correct. And I think a lot of what your positions are shaped around that.
In terms of the leadership, like the leadership structure?
Sure.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, sure. Like again, I'm still, I love you, buddy, but I'm convinced. I genuinely believe that if Schumer had not picked this fight, I think in December you would be saying, well, he's vindicated. He should do it next time.
No, you're assigning me either incompetence or bad faith. I'm not sure.
It's not incompetence, and it's not even bad faith. I just think that your default is one of hesitation and reaction. Just like you say, my default is aggression. Your position was, unless I am mischaracterizing you, your position was that I want to pick fights all the time, that all I want to do is fight. My position is the opposite, which is that I think that your instinct is to just wait longer. And to the extent that you do support Democratic, and then to the extent that you support Democratic action, it's you always point retroactively, right?
What are you accusing me of here? Say that again. Your default is to default to what the Democratic leadership does. I try to evaluate things independently. I just try to look at a situation and I just try to ask myself, like, what are all the angles that I would have to consider if I was in the leadership position right now? Like my big problem with leadership in the party has to do more of like branding than anything else, because I do think that in terms of Democratic leadership, they have demonstrated themselves to be quite competent. I don't even know how you could disagree with that. Like Pelosi and Schumer and Jeffries, they have demonstrated time and time again that they were insanely effective in their roles. Like Jeffries, he has extracted concessions from Republicans multiple times. The guy's never even been House Speaker. Like every fight he's ever picked, he's kept his caucus unified in that fight. Like Schumer, say what you will about like he's cringe and he says stuff like aroused or whatever, but like are you seriously telling me that Schumer has not been effective in his role as like Democratic leader in the Senate?
No, I think that in terms of like the legislative aspect, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, like his role as the Senate leader. He's done a fantastic job over the years. Don't even get me started.
Again, we could say this with Biden,
on Pelosi, right? Like Pelosi was.
Well, what about Biden, right?
Biden was phenomenal when it came to
getting stuff
I agree,
done with
right?
Congress.
But
right, but there's more than just the legislative angle, right? I totally agree with you that when it comes to whipping votes, I mean Pelosi's unparalleled.
It's not just about in terms of strategy. It's about like when to pick your fights. Like Jeffries has not he's not tried to do a shutdown every single time, right? He's picked his battles. And every time
he actually tried to do the shutdown back in March.
Well, I think Schumer was giving him cover. Like I think Schumer threw himself on the sword there.
I understand. And again, this is we're counterfactual. He says one thing, but you think that there's, like I know he says that it was because.
Well, why would both of them throw themselves on the sword at that point? Like, why would they both?
Maybe
how does that make any sense?
I guess my point is I think it's possible that they just had a legitimate disagreement about, I think Jeffries wanted the shutdown then, right? And Schumer didn't. And then they both wanted it now. Right. And you say that they're both really effective. So how do you square that circle? Like now you're saying Schumer's vindicated.
Well,
it would have been a bad idea for a shutdown, but didn't Jeffries want the shutdown back then too?
Well, I just told you a little while ago that I mean, you acknowledged that if Schumer would have picked that fight and then the voters would have perceived that as overreach, it would have hurt the fight now. And so I feel like if you admit that, you kind of have to take my position, but you're not for some reason.
Do you think Jeffries takes that position?
I think Schumer, like there was no political reason to have both of them like fall on the sword. And I think Schumer knew he was going to get a bunch of shit for that.
I got it.
But he's the one that like volunteered his tribute in that moment. And I think that there was no, like, let's say both of them agreed to that they should wait to pick the fight. Like, does it make sense for both of those people to take the heat? Probably not. Right? Like,
well, I mean, there again, we just do a counterfactual. Actually, no, it would have been the stronger thing to do, Hutch, because it would have sent a unified message to the party that, hey, listen, as unpopular as you think this might be, the two most high-ranked Democrats in either chamber of the Senate are actually unified on this front, which is now it's not the time. And maybe that would have been more persuasive to the Democratic base to say, hey, listen, it's not just Schumer acting rogue here. I, too, Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the House, agree with Schumer that now is not the time for a shutdown. And maybe that would have been more persuasive.
Well, you said a little while ago that everything that I say is always on hypotheticals, right? Like you mentioned that like my arguments always rest on hypotheticals, like hypothetically it could have been worse and blah, blah, blah. But like your whole thing is hypotheticals. Like I feel like your hypothetical position 99% of the time is that
100%
is that with the right amount of leadership, we can manipulate American voters and change public sentiment.
I'll cop to it.
What is the precedent for this, by the way? Like, I feel like all throughout modern history, when we look at presidents, they do go with kind of where the public is, except, I mean, Donald Trump is a bit of a wild card, right? But like, apart from him, like, this is just a normal thing for presidents to like move with the political winds. Like, when was there a time where presidents like put their thumb on the scale and just massively influenced the entire country to move substantially on some issue? Can you think of like anything?
Not off the top of my head, no.
It's because it's not normal. This is not common. Like that, it's way more common for politicians to, or especially presidents, right? When we're talking about the entire country, to sort of meet voters where they're at. And I feel like this is like this big philosophical difference that I have with you and I have with like a lot of other people, because I feel like a lot of people on the left, they have this view that the American public is just very kind of easily manipulated. Like that's where this whole idea of like just send Bernie into West Virginia comes into play. It's because people think that like all you need is like a charismatic.
Do I agree with that?
No, I know. I know you don't, but I'm just saying it's the same. It's the same.
So is
logic.
It possible that my position's a bit more nuanced, and that my position is that not that presidents can single-handedly alter public opinion in massive ways, because you're right, maybe they couldn't. I don't have any examples of that on hand. Maybe it's possible that my position is a bit more nuanced, which is that both the public and public leaders shape public viewpoints and public opinion, and that it's not just the public, it's not just leadership, and that it's a kind of a complicated mess, and that political capital you invest to spend and not just simply wait for the opportune moment. Sometimes you have to take risks. Sometimes you have to try to create the opportune moment. I mean, again, it's like anything else, right? It's like any sort of investment. You try to wait for the best time you possibly can, but you can't wait for a guarantee.
But sometimes, I guess what I'm saying is like sometimes politics is kind of waiting for your opponent to make a mistake. There was this chess grandmaster who was like the world champion for many years, this guy named Petrosian, and he really frustrated a lot of chess players because he was super defensive. Like his whole style was just creating the strongest possible position he could, and then as soon as his opponent made a mistake, he would just dismantle their entire position. That's how this guy was champion for like years. And it was a totally different kind of way of playing chess when he first kind of introduced it. But that's kind of what politics is sometimes. It's just it is like pulling your punches and waiting to pick a fight until you actually have enough of support from the public, or your opposition has lost enough support that it really strengthens, and then you pounce, and then you should pounce and like use all that. What political capital do we have right now? Like Democrats, like we don't really have like much of anything right now. I mean, this fight I think is going to do. I think you're going to see the Democratic Party's numbers go up as a result of this fight. I think you are going to see like more of the Dem voter base be like, yeah, there's the fight I'm looking for. But I think that like choosing this spot right now was politically shrewd. I just have to come to that conclusion.
I want you to know how passionate I was about this, how you caught me at a moment. As I told you in a recent text message, I'm trying to spend my time more wisely. And here I am. I've only cranked out 2 videos for the day, and I'm choosing to spend time with you. This is the problem. I have an addiction problem.
I know, I'm
addicted to you.
I get it.
You don't fucking get it. You don't get it, because this is like, you have found it. You've hit that fucking sweet spot where this is streaming. I can't do this. Like, I could just sit here for 7 hours and go back and forth with you.
Wait, can I flip it around on you right now and ask you, like, when has there been a time where Democrats picked their battles, like picked their fight wisely, that you supported? Like, when has there been a time where they were strategic about it? I support this fight. I 100% supported this fight before and after. I just wish they also would have done it in April as well. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. No. The question is when they picked their battles. Like, this was them picking their battles. So you don't support that. You don't support waiting until now. Like, so yeah. When has there ever been a moment where they chose not to fight, where you said, okay, that was smart?
Chose not to fight, and when it was smart. Could you give me some examples, and I can tell you whether or not I agreed with them or agree with them?
Like, you know, I feel like the Democrats, they could have moved to.
You gave me the gay marriage example, and I agreed with that one.
Okay, well, there's that. I mean, like, but I'm saying, like, if we go back to like 2018, they take back the House. Honestly, they had like 5 rationales that they could have used to initiate impeachment proceedings right away. You know, firing Comey should have been an impeachable moment, but they waited until
they didn't have the majority in.
No.
Are you talking about
when they won in 2018 and the new Congress was sworn in 2019? They did not impeach Trump right away. They didn't start initiating impeachment stuff until like August or September, after the Ukraine stuff was revealed.
Yeah. No, I don't remember ever getting upset for them waiting on impeachment. It never actually occurred to me at the time, because impeachment just was so uncommon until they impeached him in 2019, late 2019, over the Ukraine ship. So that never crossed my mind. I don't recall ever taking the position.
Joe Biden picking his battles when it came to negotiating legislation.
Can you again give me like some specific examples? I think
the first 2 years, right? Like, not fighting not really waging like a public fight for $15 an hour minimum wage. We've talked about that 1,000 times, right?
Yeah, I think that I agreed with you on the minimum wage thing, because he could have. I think that was one of the things that you and I first started engaging with when you and I like first started talking. Well,
your whole thing was that you wanted him to get caught trying, even though he knew that he couldn't win that fight.
Well, no, I felt that he could have. Well, I thought my position was that the $15 minimum wage thing wouldn't have passed because Manchin would have voted it down. Like, they still needed the support, and they just didn't have the votes for it.
Yeah, they didn't have the votes, but you and the rest of the pod boys were saying, like Live and Learn pod boys, you were saying that there was value in getting caught, like, trying.
Did I say that about the $15 minimum wage?
I thought so. I thought that was like the whole thing.
Gaslighting myself on that one. I don't recall like getting upset about him not going after the parliamentarian, because you were the one who persuaded me on that. You said, well, my position was, I think initially my position was, from what I remember, that they should have overruled the filibuster. And I think you made the point, like, well, or overruled the parliamentarian. You made the point that wouldn't have made a big deal, because
but when the Vanguard boys came on, I think you were trying to find like a middle ground position. between mine and theirs. And you said
the
something
parliamentarian on the $15 minimum wage, because I thought when I spoke up, the few times I spoke up was to say
you didn't support like firing the parliamentarian, but you were saying like it might have made strategic sense to Biden to go out there and still like tell people like I want to get this done, knowing that he would fail, because then it would just look like he was fighting. Like that
on the $15 minimum wage or on a separate issue.
I thought it was like a bevy of issues. I don't think it was just one issue.
So the one, like the Voting Rights Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, I definitely supported Biden ringing the bell about that. Build Back Better. I think that he should have still vociferously came out and said, I want this passed. I want this passed. But he got Manchin. Was it Manchin or Sinema? Who supported the Inflation Reduction Act? Was it both of them or just one of them?
No, they both supported it. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was able to secure a lot of concessions, a lot of the climate aspects of Build Back Better in that. I thought that was successful, but I don't recall ever saying that Biden should have picked a fight over the $15 minimum wage. I don't think that's an example. But like just in general of him like continuing to speak out, like, yes, I support Build Back Better. Yes, I want to see Build Back Better passed. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Those are examples.
If we go back even further, like Obama not picking a fight about like codifying Roe is like another really good example of what I'm talking about how sometimes it makes strategic sense to explicitly not pick a fight, to publicly not pick a fight. And that's just like that's the kind of thinking that I'm thinking about in terms of politics. Like I feel like,
so again, it's been a mixed bag. There have been times, like I said, I agree in principle that I felt Biden should have gotten caught more. Like one thing that he did that Pisco and I disagree on, I thought it was good that after he tried the immigration agenda and it failed, that he started to issue executive orders basically daring the court to strike him down. They were likely unconstitutional. That's part of the reason that he didn't want to go the executive order route. But once the bipartisan legislation fell through, he basically tried to get caught trying by way of executive order. I think that was the right thing to do. I think in terms of his rhetoric, again, just, talking about Build Back Better or the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, I think those were, things to stake the ground on. But I don't think $15 minimum wage was one. I don't think Obama gay marriage was one, just again because at the time it was still so socially conservative. I don't think that even a majority supported gay marriage at the time that Barack Obama was campaigning for the office, and it may have cost him the election. I don't know. That was 2008. I was 17 years old, not paying attention to politics at the time, so I'm not sure.
I think the codifying Roe thing is like the perfect example of what I'm talking about, because he got a lot of flack from people on the left, because what happened was he came out, it was like 3 or 4 months into his administration, and by that point, they were already like balls deep in the ACA negotiations, and he came out with this public statement saying that codifying Roe was not a legislative priority for him. When he ran on codifying Roe, he explicitly ran on like I want to pass a bill to actually do this thing, and then he gets elected 4 months later. He says the thing, and people were pissed off about. He still gets flack for that. That was I've seen people criticize, but that was like the perfect example of what I'm talking about, because he had to do that in order to get the ACA passed, and he just yeah.
I can't. Again, I don't. That was with the 60. That was like in 2009, 2010, right?
That was 2010. Or okay. 2009 when he came out with the statement.
2009. Okay, so again, I wasn't paying attention closely at the time, so I don't think I had a strong opinion about it at the time. Again, in hindsight, that's not a hill I've ever died on or anything I've ever advocated for, because I recognize that at the time it wasn't like he was off by a couple. Like there were just, if I remember correctly, like dozens of members in the House on the Democratic side that were pro-life that would have never codified Roe into law and would have never taken that risk politically anyway, because at the time Roe was good law, right? And there was no direct threat to it. So again, all I can say is that in my years of political commentary, I've never taken the position that I'm aware of that Obama should have spent political capital on codifying Roe.
I'm not accusing you of that. I'm just saying, like, these are the kinds of decisions in politics that I think that I value just as much as when a party, sticks their flag in the sand and picks a fight. Like, I think the ability or the skill of knowing when to retreat and when to pick the fight, these are equally important skills to have.
And again, I
totally feel like you want to nurture just the one side.
I understand, and I agree. Right? I understand. I feel the same way about you. I feel like you want to nurture just the one side, and this is part of our Joker Batman ongoing eternal tension. Is you think I'm more on one side, and I think you're more on the other.
But you haven't articulated a coherent, communicable vision of how we would even get to court packing. Like you're kind of not concerning yourself with the finer details. Your prescription here just assumes that we can drastically change public opinion, like in a really short time frame. Like,
all I can do is repeat for probably the fourth or fifth time once again that I don't think that we can swing 30 points in 3 years or anything like that. But I felt that we have to acknowledge that public officials and political leaders can help shape public opinion, and perhaps we should spend more political capital in trying to warm the public up into the need for not just court reform in the form of.
But you can do that without specifically pushing, without specifically declaring that the party platform adopt expanding the court as one of their policy. You can help change public opinion. You can help shift public opinion without saying we are going to expand the court when you give us power again.
And we shape public opinion without stating what we want to do. I don't know how we do that, but if in terms of codifying, in terms of not putting it as the Democratic Party agenda, I mean, I'm open to that. I just don't know how you do it surreptitiously without saying that this is something we need to do.
Well, you lay the groundwork. You laid the foundation first,
and right. And again, I don't want to ask you what the foundation is, because I'm thinking you're going to be like, that's not fair or whatever. I don't know what you think the foundation is, but I just don't think the foundation has been poured at all. I don't even know if we have a sketch of a blueprint for the house, let alone the pouring of the concrete for the foundation. I just think we got to get moving on it. I think we should have been moving on it years ago. And I think that we are where we are because this court is so partisanly lopsided. And,
I don't even understand that logic though, because I feel like Democrats have been talking about the courts being fucked for years. Hillary Clinton ran on a constitutional amendment for the what am I thinking of, the voting stuff, or the lobbying, Citizens United. Joe Biden was running on how shitty the court was in 2020. He didn't come out in favor of packing the court, but I think he ran on appointing a commission to look into reforms, which is what he did. And then he relayed what the commission came up with, right? But I'm not
actually. I don't know. I think he stuffed it in a drawer. I don't think he ever made a public announcement or any sort of public spectacle about what the commission came up with. He certainly made a commission or spectacle during the campaign that they would that one of the first things he would do is have a commission about it. But no, I think he quietly released the report and then moved on.
But do you see what I'm saying though? I understand okay, we got to get the leadership and just full court press from the entire party pushing on how fucked the court is, and then. And you seem
that's where I disagree. I'm not saying that it's enough to complain about how fucked the court is. I think that's kind of your point, is that's the foundation, is talk about how bad the court is. No, I think we got to move one step further and say, hey, the court is bad, and it's so meaningfully bad that we're proposing major reforms to the court itself in the form of X, Y, and Z, and here is 1, 2, and 3 reasons why, and here's how it directly impacts you. I think that I'm not asking for Democrats to simply complain about the court, because I acknowledge that we've done that, and we could probably do it more, I guess, but and more consistently. But we've certainly loudly complained about the court. I think it's time to loudly complain about the court, make it more personal, and move in the direction of, and here's what we're going to do about it if you put us back in power. Since
I thought, well, right, but when you. So you are saying here's what we're going to do when you put us in power. You are saying that they should run on packing the court, right? I thought that's what the conversation was all about, Jessiah.
I thought no. Well, you were the one who said that we shouldn't, that we can't talk about it. My position is I don't know how we can lay the foundation without talking about it. My position is yes, I do think that Democratic politicians need to talk about expanding the court. You're saying no, we need to we can lay the foundation for it in an indirect way. And my position is, if you can show me a way to get to court expansion, which we both agree is necessary, without talking about it, but while simultaneously like shaping public opinion or trying to shape public opinion in that direction, I'm all ears. Like the reason that I think we should talk about expanding the court is because I think we need to expand the court, and I don't see a way to expand the court without talking about expanding the court. You seem to be agreeing that we need to expand the court, but that we shouldn't talk about it to expand the court. And I'm saying, well, that's fine. I guess we don't have to talk about it, but we need to expand the court and we need to make that happen. So how can we do that without talking about it?
I don't think that logic always works in politics. Like, I think we should talk about it expanding the court because we should expand the court. That's the same logic could have been used for Barack Obama. I think he should run on, codifying gay marriage because we should codify gay marriage. But the consideration was back then was that it would have been tough. Maybe it would have been a liability for him in a tough primary for him to take a position that was not majority support. So he didn't take that position. So like, it's the same exact logic with packing the court. Which has lower approval ratings right now than gay marriage did back then.
But this is where I get confused. This is where I get confused, because earlier I asked you, I said, okay, so just to be clear, you agreed that Barack Obama, when it came to gay marriage, was basically just 100% reactive and just waited. And you said yes. Yeah. But then when I've asked you about the Supreme Court, you're like, no, I'm not asking that we do. I'm not saying that we should do what Obama did for gay marriage. But it sounds like that is what you're saying.
No, explicitly, that's what I did say. I said you need a mandate from the public if you're going to make a big push for packing the court.
Okay, so when it comes to packing the court, to be super clear, then Democrats can't and shouldn't try to shape public opinion because it's just too risky and the time is not right.
I did it. No, we need to. There's a difference between trying to shift public opinion about like possibly like pushing a public to be more open to expanding the court. There's a difference between that and then running on we should expand the court.
Wait. But did Obama do that with gay marriage?
Yeah. 100%.
What did Obama do with gay marriage that is analogous here? Give me the
apples to apples comparison. When he was running in a primary against Hillary Clinton, he took a position of, I support civil unions, but not gay marriage.
Got it.
Because, that was what the majority of the country felt like at the time. And then it was pretty close to the Supreme Court decision that he came out in favor of gay marriage. And by that point, the political winds had already shifted. So like, I think it was just about a majority or a slight majority of support in the country by the time he took that position.
But what did he do to help shape public opinion?
I really don't know. I don't know. I think a lot of that came from media, to be honest with you.
Got it. Okay. No, but that's fine. I'm fine with that. So what I'm trying to understand though is, are you saying we should adopt the Obama playbook for expanding the Supreme Court? And it seems like you're telling me yes, but also no. And I'm genuinely confused by that.
I mean, you should, if you're trying to do politics smartly, you should basically always adopt that policy. Like if you're a president, why would you come out like strongly?
No, I understand. Right. So there are two parts to this, right? There's the candidate coming out and campaigning on it, and then there's the shaping public opinion about it, right? There's two parts. My understanding is you think Obama certainly didn't do the first, and maybe he didn't even do the latter, which is try to shape public opinion like in a Machiavellian way somehow. But you think with the Supreme Court, we should adopt half the Obama playbook, which is not to campaign on expanding the court, but you think we should try to shape public opinion about expanding the Supreme Court.
Yo.
Hey, what's up, Aaron?
What's up?
We were having a conversation about
solving the world's problems.
I figured.
It's been 24 hours and also 5 minutes. In
a very broad sense, we're talking about the strategy of like should presidents okay, hold on. Should presidents meet people where they're at, like meet voters where they're at, or should presidents use their position to try to like passionately advocate for big changes? Which is, I feel like, kind of analogous to the stuff that we've disagreed with on the past about like the role of the presidency. I don't know if we've specifically disagreed, but yeah.
Like, what is the topic? Because I was realizing that we never actually like set a formal topic. You approached me in DMs like, hey, I saw you in Live and Learn chat. Let's debate. But then later I was like, oh, this topic is evergreen. And I sent that to you at like 6 a.m. after I streamed all night. And I was like, I don't even know what topic I'm referring to.
I think you were in the Live and Learn chat when we were discussing like the Ezra Klein strategy, which I guess is a little adjacent to what we're talking about. The Ezra Klein strategy of like, should we run pro-life Democrats to expand our majority? I feel like you were in the chat. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick. I don't want to. I don't want this like to be a 2v1, and quite frankly, I need to get back to doing content. So if you want to like bring Aaron in on this and on the Supreme Court thing, and then I can fuck off in just a few minutes. That might be the best like natural segue.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that then.
Aaron.
Jessiah.
You agree that the Supreme Court is fucked? Needs to be expanded and reformed,
Supreme
right?
Court is indeed fucked. I mean, if you're asking me my true ideological position, the Supreme Court should be abolished pretty much, to the point that it be replaced with an institution that has like the highest legal authority, but in no way, shape, or form resembles the current institution that we have. I think it's a very undemocratic institution in the first place. That's not happening anytime soon. So in the meantime, before people like me grab the mic and say, let's get rid of it, we should probably listen to the people that are like, maybe we just reform it a little bit as a treat.
Yeah, Hutch and I are in our ongoing Batman Joker dilemma of he thinks I'm too aggressive and I think he's too reactive. And so we were using the example of basically how do we. Hutch doesn't want us to actively campaign on expanding the court, but he's open to Democratic politicians and trying to help shape public opinion to make them more amenable to court expansion. And Hutch, I don't want to misrepresent you. Is that a fair assessment?
Democrats right now should not run on, we're going to expand the court if you give us power.
Right. But you're saying that you are open to them trying to shape public opinion about it.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
If there's opportunities to do that. Yeah, of course.
And we were just trying to figure out what that would look like. I, of course, think that my default assumption is in order to expand the court, we actually have to talk about it and run on it. But if we can do it like an indirect way, I don't give a shit as long as the court gets expanded. So we were trying to nail this disagreement out before I dipped.
Mm-hmm. Hutch, what's your reason for not wanting to expand the court, or you don't think it's like a good thing for them to run on yet?
No, it's not that I oppose expanding the court. I say they shouldn't run on it because we're out of power right now. And if we signal an intent to expand the Supreme Court next time we get power, what's to stop the Republicans from eliminating the filibuster now and then doing, not only packing the court, but eliminating the filibuster to do like a lot of horrible things in the next year, where hopefully we can win the midterms. I don't know about this fucking voting rights situation.
I feel like every single like what if scenario, like what if the Republicans do that? It's like usually they're already doing that, or there's nothing stopping them from doing that. So I think that the Democrats need to not determine their position based. I'm not saying they should ignore it entirely, but I don't think it should really factor in like what the Republicans are going to do in a very significant way at all, because this is the type of, they're not going to be consistent on this. Like back when Scalia died or whatever, McConnell's like, well, he's a lame duck, so we don't want to appoint a judicial nominee to the Supreme Court during the lame duck session. And then when they had the opportunity to get Amy Coney Barrett on the court, obviously they reversed that and they just did whatever the fuck they want. And don't you have Republicans now calling for them to get rid of the filibuster? And like they've already, I think it was like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I realize like she's an outspoken voice right now and kind of like a lone voice, but you'll see these sorts of sentiments already pushing or like already coming from Republicans right now that are, to the extent that there's household name Republicans, they are putting this on the table as a thing that they want to do.
Well, the filibusters, I mean, just, so I don't know. I think there's been like a few voices at a few different times in terms of Republicans that have been calling to just get rid of the filibuster generally, but this is certainly not a mainstream position. There's not any real threat of that happening right now. Thune has not indicated that he's going to get rid of the filibuster anytime soon. Like he's resisted Donald Trump. Like Donald Trump has called for the filibuster to be removed and they haven't removed it yet. But as soon as you say like, we are going to pack the court, then they just will do that. Like, and they'll have so much political cover to do that at that point. So I think this idea that we shouldn't really worry about Republicans, what they'll do in response to the things that we'll do, I don't really think that makes sense, because they can do some really awful things if we're not thoughtful and careful.
Jessiah, what do you think about that? I feel like Hutch, it sounds weird for you to say it's like a fringe thing, but then you're saying that like, well, even Trump has called for it, which I didn't even realize.
I mean in the Congress. We're not seeing any like push to get rid of the filibuster when it comes to the Republican Party in Congress.
Yeah, I don't. We talked about this a bit, and I'll be super quick. I don't think the Republican Party has a principled attachment to the filibuster. I think they see it as a means to an end. I think historically speaking, they do not view the filibuster as an impediment to the lion's share of their agenda because they care mostly about judges and tax cuts. And so when it came to judges, the Supreme Court in particular, they made an exception to the filibuster, nuclear carve-out. So they fucked with the filibuster. There was no need for them to abolish it wholesale because they could keep it in reserve and use it against Democrats where they pleased. And then for the shit that got in their way that they cared about most, they were willing to kind of like whittle away at it and chip at it. And I just think that that's how the Republican Party views it now. Like you have an increasing number of populists like Marjorie Taylor Greene who are just openly saying fuck the filibuster. But the reason that John Thune, who's the Senate Majority Leader, is holding on to it is because I think he just doesn't see right now that he needs to break that glass, and to get rid of it wholesale would mean that if and when Democrats ever get back in power, they would have a clear field.
So why wouldn't they do more permanent stuff with the one big beautiful bill? Like why wouldn't they do much more expansive permanent things, which they could do if they just got rid of the filibuster?
I don't, because again, I'm not sure what you think like their highest, like the stuff that they cared about the most was the tax cuts, which they made permanent in the one big beautiful bill. So again, that was McConnell's rationale for not getting rid of the filibuster when Trump demanded it back in 2017, 2018 or whatever. Again, the stuff that they cared about the most, their high priority, they just didn't need to abolish the filibuster wholesale. They just make exceptions and tinker with it when and where they please. And again, the OBB, it wasn't a nuclear exception, but they did. And again, I have to go back and read the article about it, but they sidestepped the filibuster on that by fucking with procedure, the parliamentarian. So these like anti-majoritarian traditions or rules, they'll either make exceptions to them or find other ways to work around them if and when they think it's a high enough priority.
So your whole thing is like we're on a ticking clock. The filibuster is going to go one way or the other.
I think no. I don't know if it's going to be abolished wholesale, because I know like even Democrats called for the abolition of the filibuster, but I'm not sure if and when Democrats get back into power that they would vote on just get rid of it for the reasons that we talked about earlier, which is we love it when we're out of power and we hate it when we're in power. I think it'll just be it's kind of like an ice cube in hot water. I think it's just going to slowly melt over time rather than totally evaporate in an instant.
Well, I mean, I just want to be the one in power when there's like some serious pullback from the filibuster. Like, I don't think strategically it makes a lot of sense to be pushing for this kind of move when we're out of power. Like, you would have to explain. Yeah. I want to be the one. I mean, I feel like
this is about like what they run on in the midterms and then leading up to 2028. No.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, like because I was trying to still find this poll, unless I miss, like I don't think I'm certainly not advocating for, and I don't think Aaron is either, that Democrats should be saying let's abolish the filibuster right now. I agree with you. No, we'd be like Republicans should keep the filibuster right now. They should expand it. They should make it more expansive.
It sounded like you were making the case that they're not principally they're attached to the filibuster, and they're already doing everything.
I think they are. I thought just how you were saying that very plainly, and I think it's true. It's a means to an end, and to the extent that they care about it, it's because it's useful to their party, and when it stops being useful, they will magically suddenly find some other more principled reason to oppose it or get rid of it or why it needs to be abolished or whatever.
Well, again, not abolish it wholesale. I genuinely don't believe that the Republicans will do that because, again, it's throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I think what they'll do is that what they have done in the past, which is that they will sidestep it through procedural shenaniganry, or they'll invoke the nuclear option. They'll go nuclear and say, okay, when it comes to this specific bill or this specific type of legislation, it's no longer filibuster proof. All you need is a simple majority.
They've done that a few times this year. They've passed things through budget reconciliation, right?
Yeah, but that's a procedure that, like, just by default, it's only with a simple majority. I can't remember, like, chicken or egg, which one came first. Maybe Hutch knows, I would probably know.
Budget reconciliation was devised after the introduction of the filibuster, and it was just a way for them to do, more budget-oriented bills. And, like Biden did a bunch of budget reconciliation stuff. But the point is they could do much more expansive legislation if they wanted to right now, if they just got rid of the filibuster. And what I'm saying is if Democrats run on, hey, we're going to do that if you guys give us the power, that give us a trifecta, we will get rid of the filibuster, and then and then do court reform. If you do that now, they will get rid of the filibuster tomorrow and just start doing much more expansive bills than what we saw in the one big beautiful bill. So tactically, I just think taking shots when you're out of power, when they have the power to get rid of the filibuster, just seems tactically stupid.
This, I guess, this to me seems sort of like fatalistic to the point that it's like, since we're out of power, how does this not just apply to every single thing that Democrats could try to make a cornerstone of their campaign?
It's because a
like
filibuster
if you
is
try
just
to make Medicare
and
like running on Medicare reform an issue, they're going to try to like cut Medicare even more, which they've already done. Or if you try to run on like transports or something like that, then they're going to oppose it. If you try to run on being pro-choice, they'll run on a really, really big like anti-choice push. Like they've already done and are doing these things. I feel like at some point you do kind of have to take the gamble of hoping that the position that you're going to posit will be popular enough, not only as a salient campaign pitch, but will actually win you your race. And then once you're in power, you can exert it and over the Republicans and their minoritarian rule.
I mean,
real quick, I'm going to dip out. I've had to piss so badly for like an hour and a half. And Hutch, I just want to say again, this is part of the problem. This is what I mean. My day, just talking to you is so much fun.
It is.
And it ends up becoming an 8-hour fucking thing. Yeah. But the problem is like, I have no impulse control when it comes to this. This is why I get one guide so easy. Like this is a problem. I just lack all discipline. And even the second video that I dropped, I realized I didn't put a description. I didn't put tags in it. I didn't put anything. I just went public because I was like, fuck it. I'm talking to Hutch. Let's just get the shit out here.
People often tell me I have a magnetic personality. So what you're demonstrating right now.
Well, to be fair, it's not just you. Like, this is the problem. Like, when Aaron and I have conversations, they last 8 hours. The same thing with Pisco and like everything. Like, it's just, there's a problem. And this is why. I'm better, though. Well, I guess I can't quibble with that. Certainly the sex appeal is unparalleled coming from you. But look, it's been fun. I appreciate it. You guys have a lot of fun. And I'm definitely on Aaron's side when it comes to court packing.
All right.
Okay. I just want to put that out there. Aaron, succeed where I have failed to persuade Hutch.
I will do my best.
All right.